Meet your new partner.
I'm too old for this.
Hey everybody, welcome to Cinema Gulp. I'm Ben.
And I'm John.
And this is part one of our series revisited of the Lethal Weapon franchise.
So Lethal Weapon 1, released in March of 1987. It started as a spec script by a 25-year-old Shane Black, who appears as an actor in Predator and helped write a number of other buddy cop genre films along the way. But his original script was a very gritty and dark cop thriller, kind of envisioned as an urban western and inspired by films like Dirty Harry and other cop kind of dramas. He saw the potential in, or I guess, I don't know if Black really saw this, but Hollywood certainly saw the potential in odd pairing duos such as things like 48 Hours and even Beverly Hills Cop. Even though it doesn't get the label of a buddy comedy, it kind of does with the, I'm blanking on their names, please help
Taggart and Rosewood.
Taggart and Rosewood. Like, even though there's a threesome there, it is still kind of a buddy cop movie in that way. And I think it helped with the building blocks for what Lethal Weapon built on. So Shane Black was teaming up two wildly different heroic characters that would have to learn to trust each other and to battle their differences, as well as ruthless villains, to create a bond stronger than steel. And the script really cemented the approach and some of the tropes that we get for all buddy cop genre movies moving forward. Originally, the Riggs character was a kind of an older, Dirty Harry type outsider on the force. He was the kind of cop that no one wanted to work with, but everyone knew that his brute force approach got results that no one else could get. An original casting idea for that role was William Hurt, and I can kind of see the thought process there. Like, he's not a tough guy. I don't get it from the kind of the Dirty Harry tough guy side of it, but I get it from kind of the actor that he is. I could see him kind of playing that, the age and everything like that. I don't know. I get why the studio was like, no, we're going to go in a different direction, but it's an interesting thought of William Hurt filling that role. The original script was more violent, had a bigger finale with like the Hollywood sign on fire and cocaine raining down over the Hollywood Hills, which is a visual that I kind of wish we got. They kind of end up with a version of that on a smaller scale with all the heroin raining down on the street. It almost just kind of looks like smoke and stuff. It doesn't sell it as well as like, oh, this is drugs raining down on the street. And I think the Hollywood Hill idea with the cocaine would have made that point a little better. But obviously that was a big budgetary thing. And at the end of the day, we didn't really need it. I think we got a great finale in this movie. The script was shopped around Hollywood, finally landing at Warner Brothers. The studio was interested in Leonard Nimoy to direct this, hot off of the success of the last two Star Trek films. But he wasn't interested in making an action movie. He didn't feel that was his forte, and he went on to do Three Men and a Little Baby, which was a pretty good movie, but certainly not Lethal Weapon. If Nimoy had signed on to make Lethal Weapon, I think it probably would have been a one and done. Who knows? I just can't picture that.
No, I think it worked out the way it should.
And this fits perfectly with the person that they did go with, Richard Donner, who was known for at that time having made The Omen and Superman and The Goonies, all big hits, but none that really, I would say, fit the mold of what he's more known now as the Lethal Weapon style director. Donner was not interested in making an action movie, but he saw the potential in focusing on character development and the bonds of brotherhood, and thought that it would be a much more realistic approach to the 80s one-man army machismo that we were getting at that time. Donner felt that the script was too dark and wanted to add a bit of humor and heart, so he brought in writer Jeffrey Boehm, who Donner was working with on the script for Lost Boys, which Lost Boys did not come out till, I believe, August or September of that same year of 1987. But because of the connection of Boehm working with Donner on that script, they put it on a marquee in the movie. So in the background, in Lethal Weapon 1, you see this year's smash hit, The Lost Boys, written on a marquee in the background. And I love that because that means that within the movie universe of Lethal Weapon, Lost Boys is a movie that Riggs and Murtaugh could go watch, and that is freaking awesome.
Shit.
Other casting choices for Riggs, they were considering Christopher Reeves, which again, I think kind of an interesting choice. Doesn't seem like the tough guy that Riggs is, but the character went through different iterations as the script evolved. And yeah, you could see why, you know, they were considering Reeves because his connection to Donner with making Superman. Bruce Willis was another name that was actually considered at that time, even though he didn't have any status as being an action hero. Probably they looked at him the same way when they considered him for Die Hard. It was like, are we going in the right direction? This guy's not an action star, but you know, we kind of want to fill the role with an everyman in that film, specifically Die Hard. So it made sense. I don't know if he made as much sense to play Riggs the way that we see Riggs, but he could have potentially pulled it off. But once Danny Glover and Mel Gibson got into a room together and did their first script read, Donner and everybody knew that they had captured lightning in a bottle, that their chemistry was off the charts right from the start, and the studio knew that this was going to be something that added something new and different to the over-the-top 80s action genre, and that they had found the right guys to play these roles.
No, I don't got a double chin.
Yes, you do. Here it is right there, man.
Come on, we're getting old.
No. We are. Yeah, we're doing that, man. You know, but
So they reworked the script and their ages and everything to make it make sense, although both of them are actually much younger than their characters are playing, which is strange in Hollywood. Usually it goes the other way, where somebody's older trying to portray younger. From there, they were off and running. Donner brought the kinetic, exciting direction. Boehm smoothed out the rough edges of Black's script. Gibson and Glover's dynamic on-screen energy of flawed and realistic heroes reshaped Lethal Weapon 1 into the summer blockbuster that the future films would become. So the story, it's nothing groundbreaking, but maybe at its time it kind of was. Just an old cop partnered with a suicidal loose cannon to solve a murder mystery that turns personal. Donner saw the potential in the script because the action was motivated by character and character development more than sheer action spectacle, which is true. That at that time, you had stuff like Rambo and Commando that was really dominating the action space, and I think that this really does feel different because that it is character motivated. There was real depth to explore with these characters, their daily lives, their family struggles, mental health struggles, issues of aging, personal lives affected by corruption, and the 80s drug war. Roger's family dynamic becomes a central piece of the entire franchise.
Mr. Riggs, would you like that tart?
Thank you. Yeah, call me Martin.
Martin.
this is Mr. Riggs. Sit down.
Which starts with Riggs being welcomed into the family, and every film after adding more cast to the growing family. Kind of like the first version of Fast and the Furious.
I don't have friends. I got family.
Roger is the more realistic, grounded character with real-life situations to keep the series going. I really think it's interesting the way that they show how he handles the different aspects of his life. I think his performance in the first film specifically is so good. I love watching him try to understand, butt heads, and then warm up to Gibson's character. The way he juggles so many aspects of his character's personality, being a good dad, a good husband, taking on a new crazy partner, contemplating the future, solving crimes, being socially conscious, and living with all the flaws. It's hard not to say that Gibson isn't a standout in that film. Like it's kind of like a Heath Ledger Joker thing where you can't take your eyes off him every time he's on the screen. But Roger Glover's performance in that first film is so damn good. I love so many moments of him reacting to what's going on with Riggs, and just the different ways that he handles it, whether he gets on board with Riggs or butts heads with Riggs. It's just, I don't know, their dynamic together is what made this a long-running series. A lot of the great work is there with Glover's performance. I think he's just such a standout.
Yeah, I totally agree. They're both equally standouts. And, you know, I like what you said, that the story of this one is fine. It's I don't want to call it cookie cutter because, like you said, there is this great family dynamic. But it's Murtaugh and Riggs meeting each other, not liking each other at first. I know that became sort of a formulaic type of device to put in sort of buddy cop movies. But the way they handled it in this one, with just them being totally polar opposites, it works so good. And the first one's, I don't want to say it's the only one that really tackles their friendship, because after this one, it's sort of off to the races. They're best friends. This one, they get to know each other and become friends. And it's the only one that does that. Even, there's a couple other films where they have some hiccups here and there, but this is the only one that has the drama between the two. I'm always torn on this. I feel that there are more threatening villains in other films, but this one has the best villains, if that makes sense. You know, Gary Busey, Mr. Joshua, like, this movie almost doesn't work if you don't have that character in it. Like, because he's not even the main villain. He's you know, the right-hand man.
Yeah.
But he just, you were talking about, like, you can't take your eyes off Mel Gibson's Riggs when he's on screen. Same goes for Gary Busey in this movie.
Yeah, I can agree with that. He really does. He outshines all the other villains in the movie, which, you know, it's mainly the general. Yeah! I don't know which movie has my favorite villain, but there's something about the performance of Gary Busey that stands out. Maybe he's a more well-known actor. Like, I don't even know the names of the actors who portrayed the villains in part 2.
It's really just Mr. Joshua as a character. Like, he's just, like, he just stands out in every scene he's in, you know?
And it's funny to think, like, how subdued and intense he is when normally Gary Busey is just off the charts, over the top in everything he does.
Right, which he does do finally in the final fight of this movie. Through Christmas! Well, I mean, even when he's blowing up Murtaugh's house with a machine gun, it's great. It's so funny.
They introduce a lot of fun, small roles that continue on throughout the series, like the captain, who is Richard Donner's cousin, I believe.
Yep.
That actor. The psychologist, who's Robert Zemeckis' wife. All of the family members, I think, do a great job. I think they're all good. I'm happy that they were able to keep that group of actors coming back. The oldest daughter, Rianne, she's actually a pretty good actress. Like, she has to put up, especially in the first film, she has to do a lot, like being kidnapped and getting in the midst of the action and everything like that. So
yeah, she's a big part of the first one. Yeah,
and she's good in that one. On these rewatches, it was interesting to see how they gloss over her boyfriend being killed. Probably one of the most forced parts of the script, in my opinion, is when they
blonde with big dimples.
Yeah. Like, I had to set that scene up a few scenes earlier where she mentions that's what he looks like. And then that's the description given over the radio. Out of all the people on planet Earth, those two, like, Murtaugh has to be the one told that same line of, I don't know. It just, it's very forced. But then
it's a high school. It's a high school kid.
It's a high school kid, and we move on without any mention of it.
Yeah.
The final scene is Rianne opening the door and smiling at Riggs, like, "Hey, we're welcoming you into the family." 24 hours ago, your boyfriend was, like, brutally killed, or So I don't know that I never really paid attention to that line, I think, that closely before, and it was like, that kid's dead, and no one seems to care much.
I mean, I know I've thought about it before, but yeah, they never make mention of it again.
Donner can do any genre, as he had proven leading up to Lethal Weapon with films like, I mean, the wildly different films that he had success with The Omen, a classic horror, very violent, very religious, and just, like, it is everything that you want a good 70s, even into the 80s style horror film to be. And then Superman is so different. You've got this populous, fun, colorful, like, just opposite end of the spectrum in terms of its positivity of what The Omen brought to screens. And then moving on into things like The Goonies. Like, it's just, every film is kind of so different. So when you get to Lethal Weapon, it is a little bit unexpected until Lethal Weapon 1 and 2 existed in the world. Then it was like, hey, that's kind of a Richard Donner style. But with this first film, he was kind of even reinventing himself to some degree. He just really proved that he's the right choice, because this film, instead of just being what the 80s action genre kind of was at the time, which was bombastic and focused on the spectacle of the action itself, and the characters were usually underwritten. This one is trying to blend so many genres into one and not just focus on just the action, but bring the drama and bring a little bit of humor. There's enough humor in this first one that it doesn't feel out of place with the humor you get from the other films.
I've always loved Donner, and you could call him a working man's director, maybe because he is so prolific at different styles and different aesthetics. I still do feel there's a similarity in all his films, whether that be he loves to use background characters, reactions, i.e. Superman. you know,
Hey, Jim! Whoa!
Excuse me.
That's a bad outfit!
a lot of people commenting and great shots of the crowd. I think Raimi even took some inspiration from that when he did the Spider-Man movies. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my God, look at that! Things like that. And he even does that in Lethal Weapon. Like all the surroundings and everything, they're not isolated to the filmmaking. It's not like, oh, here's an action set piece. Like, no, there's people in the way, and movies used to do that a lot more. They focused on the overall environment instead of just, okay, we're gonna have two characters running. Why are there no cars in the street? Oh, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And that's one of the things he does so good with his budgets, specifically in these Lethal Weapon movies, is create really good action that looks broad, and it looks like it's affecting the environment around what you're watching, which can be obviously very expensive to shoot, at least nowadays. But I think Lethal Weapon 1 and 2 are so special. They're such special movies because they just have that perfect, we'll get into 2 when we get into 2, but the jump of the specialness and the wonderful reception to Lethal Weapon in that 1.5, barely 2 years turnaround to get a second one made and have the second one be as good as it was. That's very hard to accomplish.
It seemed like that's what Hollywood was good at back in the day. Like, I know some people have their thoughts on how like a Predator 2 or a Die Hard 2 or whatever turned out, but it was like Hollywood was able to kind of turn around a pretty good sequel in 2 years and have the same vibe and feel that you loved from the original.
Yeah, the industry is just so drastically different now. It's all these things getting in the way of just automatically not just greenlighting. Like, sequels are greenlit all the time these days. They're just never made. So.
Yeah. But other key crew members on the first film, some of these people continue on throughout most of the series, but Michael Kamen, we got to give a shout out to. I feel like this is such an iconic score, and not just the action side of it. The action side is pulse pounding, and you totally know what film you're hearing when you hear that score. But then you have the saxophone and the guitar riffs that play. Specifically, the guitar riffs are for Gibson's character, and the saxophones used for Roger's character. Eric Clapton does all the guitar work, which I think he continues to do it through the entire series. In fact, I didn't write down the guy's name who does the saxophone, but I believe the three of them, Michael Kamen doing the main score, Eric Clapton, and then the other guy doing the saxophone, have come back for all the films.
I think the saxophone player, his name is David Sanborn.
Yes, that is.
I'll tell you something, John. I despise the saxophone as an instrument. It just makes my ears bleed. I don't know why. It's not a choice. It's just a physical reaction. I love it in these movies. Because it just works, and you're so spot on. That's Murtaugh's signature song, or theme or whatever.
And then when you get the really intense but the very serious moments, Riggs contemplating suicide and stuff, the way the guitar music comes in on those scenes.
Can we talk about his acting in that scene? Oh my God, dude. Like, that scene stuck with me so much as a kid. Like, what is this guy going through? Because I saw it the year it came out, not in the theater, but I did see it when I was 10 or whatever. And I would always just look at that scene and go, what is happening? What's wrong with this person? Because I didn't quite understand everything at the time. And you grow to appreciate it as you get older, and you feel depression and you feel sadness and you feel loss specifically. And man, he just owns it. Just like right off the bat, like Mr. Tough Guy. He's introduced smoking a cigarette, butt naked, throwing dog treats to his dog, chugging a beer. And then 2 scenes later, he's crying, by himself. It's amazing.
And again, I don't know, like at whatever point he acted that scene out in front of Donner, that's what cemented the role for him, because it was like, that is so different, as you're pointing out. Like, he's introduced like any other action hero of the 80s, but you never see that kind of side of any of those, of a Stallone, of a Schwarzenegger, of whoever it was at that time. Lesser names like Chuck Norris and Charles Bronson, but you're not going to get that kind of performance out of any of those characters. They just didn't exist in the world of action movies. So to your point, for that to happen so early in the film, to be like, this guy is a real guy, and I don't care how tough he is, and is willing to jump off of a building with a guy. I know that scene hadn't happened yet, but like, doesn't matter what we see this guy do, you always go back to that scene and know how broken he is.
And that scene sets the stage, like you said, for his actions moving forward in the movie. His recklessness, jumping off the building. Yeah, it breaks him down as a character before he even meets, his second half. And the movies you're describing, like the Chuck Norrises and like Charles Bronson, those movies don't allow their characters that kind of breathing room. I don't know how many takes they did of that. His crying, I mean, obviously he's really crying, but he's doing it in a way where, I don't know if you've ever sat alone and cried and talked to yourself. I have. I don't know how he did that with like lighting guys and focus pullers right up in his face. Like, it's incredible. I think
he's a very talented actor. He's never.
Yeah, I know. It's like, that question could be chalked up to, he's an actor, he's used to it, but it's just so gripping. It's so sad, and like, just putting the gun down and god damn it, like he can't do it. Yeah. Holding the picture of his wife.
I always think about when he won his Oscar for Braveheart, and he got up there and he's like, what I really want to do is act. It's like, yeah, man, you can. I know you don't get the credit for it, but you can.
Well, like most directors, I suppose what I really want to do is act. But
Glover's standout kind of moment, when right after the jumper scene, and he realizes, man, you really are suicidal. You have a true death wish. And he pulls him into that side store, and it just, the look in his eyes and how furious he is, and how like he tries to close the door. And we've all kind of done this, where you think, I'm gonna slam this door shut and make an impact, but the door swings. The way it just keeps swinging open. It doesn't make that kind of moment that you would expect of a door closing.
That always stood out to me.
Like, pisses him off. He's so like so ferocious in his movements, and then it just gets into, they're right in each other's faces, and he tempts him with the gun. And
I love the line where he's like, "Come here." He's like, "Where?" "Here with me."
Hey, come here. Come where? Here with me.
Yeah. And Gibson really is like, what's going on? What are you upset about? He really does startle him. He's barely even out of the inflatable land pad, and he's kind of laughing, like thinking, he's his typical self of like, whatever, I don't care, I got the guy down. And just out of nowhere, Glover starts grabbing at him, and he reacts like, who's grabbing me? Do I need to fucking fight this guy? And just their reactions, it's so real. There are so many moments. Donner and everybody saw it when these two guys came to read together. They're like, we can do anything with these two guys, and it's going to come across as real. It's going to come across as, I know the bond wasn't there yet in one. They're supposed to be butting heads, but you could see how it would grow into what that relationship becomes across the series.
I've always been curious about the scene where Murtaugh takes the gun, and he's like, "Here, put it in your mouth." He's like, "You don't think I'll do it?" He's tempting him to do it because he's, like you said, he's so pissed off. Does Riggs pull the trigger?
Yes.
He does, right?
And he has to get his hand in there, his finger in between the hammer.
His thumb to block the firing pin.
Yeah, think about how that would feel.
That's fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up the editor, Stuart Baird.
Yeah.
I believe only got to work on the first two films, and then I think they went in a different direction. Well, I think I pointed out to you that he started directing films kind of around that time. So
you did. I didn't know that.
Moving up in the Hollywood food chain. And honestly, if I looked at his film career, I don't think his directing gigs paid off as well. And I think he ended up going back to being an editor on still.
And that's fine, because he's one of the best action editors in the business, or was. I don't know if he's still doing it, but Yeah, Last Boy Scout, Die Hard 2, Superman, Skyfall, Lady Hawk. He's done some of the best shit.
He did Skyfall?
Yeah, he did Skyfall.
Oh, yeah, that does point to that he, I think, didn't
back.
have the success he wanted as a director and went back to being a top editor.
Sometimes you're a better storyteller in one facet of filmmaking and the other not so much, you know? I totally get it. But yeah, the editing in this one, part 2, that's probably why these two are such higher. I mean, they're better scripts as well, but they're just in higher regard because the action's more kinetic. It's more exciting.
Well, let's talk about the action. The last act is so, like, once you get to like the desert scene, it doesn't really slow down at all. It's just fast-paced, exciting action for the last 20-30 minute block of the movie. Leading up to that, there's smaller action scenes. It has a $15 million budget, so it wasn't pushing the bounds of what action spectacle they could bring to the screen. They kept it small, intimate shootouts and things like that. But because of the direction and the editing and the music as well, the combination of the three, every action scene feels thrilling and exciting, even if it's just a small shootout or falling into a pool or whatever it is. Like they make it all pretty thrilling all the way throughout.
A lot of it has to do with you're invested in these guys,
Yes.
And his family.
Exactly.
I don't know if you've ever seen the original, the alternate Riggs introduction scene with the mad shooter that's shooting at kids in the building. Have you seen that?
I heard about it, and I think I've seen
online.
a clip of it, but I don't know that I've watched it in context with the film.
It's fun. It doesn't work as well as the tree lot scene because the tree lot scene is so casual. He's just sitting there with these guys. The other one is this big. He's walking up the street, and he's the camera's focusing on him, and it's a little too flashy for this movie. But if you have time to check it out, it's pretty interesting. But no, the Christmas tree lot scene is a lot of fun, but my nitpick, and it's been my nitpick with all of these films, is they are homicide detectives. That's what they are. They say it a bunch of times.
Not in that scene. He is still in the narcotics department.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, is that right? Okay, my bad.
Yes, that's what they say when he's
When
he's transferred, they say he's transferring from narcotics. Now,
my bad.
It was like the day before. Does everything move that quick? I thought there's a lot of bureaucracy where it would take a while to make that transfer happen properly. But whatever. It seems like seems like the day before he was narcotics, and now he's moving over to homicide.
Okay, so I stand corrected on that one. I forgot.
No. You're bringing up an excellent point that I want to bring up as we go through the series because they never are doing their jobs.
I'll
bring jobs.
I'll definitely bring it back up when I do 2 because 2 has the same problem.
It's like, who are they working for? Narcotics? Are they working for Bomb Squad? They are never doing the work.
Are they cops with the international slave trade? What the hell's going on?
What the hell is going on? The final fight could have been edited and shot better. It's very choppy.
Yeah,
it's still very exciting. Riggs has to get the nightstick tossed to him, and he starts using that to defend himself in really cool, creative ways. It makes the fight extends the fight and kind of gives him a second chance there.
Mad Max, it's his Thunderdome.
Yeah. I mean, there's great stuff in that final fight, but it's a little bit choppy. I wish we could see a little bit more of what's going on.
But like with everything in this movie, it's so personal and intimate. It's like cops are just watching. It doesn't have that big spectacle ending. You get that throughout the other parts where Murtaugh goes after the general. And Riggs is chasing Joshua all over the freeway, which is great. Really great stuff.
At this point, it's kind of a cliche, but I don't know if there was another film to point at from before 1987. The final moment of Joshua, he's been defeated, but he's able to grab a cop's gun, and now he's a threat again, and they have to pull their guns and shoot him together. I like that. I like the imagery of it and the way that they both have their guns and everything. It works really well for me. Final action moment to take out the bad guy, because we want to have a final fight with the bad guy, but we can't have our cop ruthlessly kill him in that fight. So we're going to end that fight where both people are still alive, but now we have this moment where the guy gets a gun and you have to shoot him and kill him. And now I feel like that's a cliche. We've seen
Oh
that
yeah,
so
the very next year with Die Hard, we get the same.
Yeah, Die
ending.
Hard is one of the big prime examples, but I feel like there's lots of examples of like a big fight that ends with them both alive, just to have one more quick little, we want the bad guy to be dead, but we can't have our cop just outright kill him in the final moments.
I think it would have made a better ending if he just got in the car and went to jail, because all these action movies, they lose the plot along the way. You're trying to solve a case and put people in jail, and like they've killed everybody else. I think if Joshua ended up in jail, it just would have, I don't know, I probably would have liked it better than sort of that tacked on. It's a great shot when they both shoot him. It's a really cool shot.
Yeah. But
I don't know. I almost feel like maybe one person should have gone to jail out of all this shit. I can see where that dark script was there, because the opening scene is really kind of horrific and tragic with, a woman who may or may not be a prostitute. Just the look on her face. That actress played it really well with what she had. Well, just like getting up on that thing and looking just totally.
Yeah, it's not even a speaking part, and it's very memorable and works well. Even just a little moment in the videotape later, like her looks on her face sell where she's at in her life.
Yeah, it was just a different kind of humor, because, like I said, these two guys are just meeting each other. They're at odds for I don't want to say the whole first half, but for the majority of the first half. So they don't have that banter back and forth yet. Plus, this is the only movie with a very, very, very different Riggs. Depressed, serious. But again, he's got a great sense of humor, and his chemistry blows up with Murtaugh right off the bat, even when they're not totally friends. But I always thought the rooftop jumping scene was hilarious. I don't even know if it was supposed to be, but just the way he's like, "You want to do it? I want to do it.
Do you wanna? Well, then that's fine with me. Let's do it, asshole. Let's do it. I want to do it. I want to do it."
It had a $15 million budget, which is, not huge at its time, but I guess that went a long way. It made $65 million domestically, so obviously a nice return on that, and 120 total worldwide. So on a $15 million budget, it's considered a massive hit, and you can see why they rushed to get a sequel going, and they knew that they had something special with this cast. And so, yeah, thankfully we got an amazing sequel that came very quickly.
Movies nowadays do not make over 10 times their budget. Not usually.
Because their budgets are too high.
Their budgets are too high, and yeah, that's a killer return, man. I mean,
when we think about stuff like Aliens is 18 million and this is 15 million, and these films will never not be part of the social consciousness, and Spawned series that tons and tons of films that spawned off of these original hits. I know Aliens is not the original film of the series, but it certainly has a big hand for why we're still watching Alien movies to this day. 2 incidences that took place in Vietnam are mentioned in the first Lethal Weapon. One being the Air America CIA operation, where they were smuggling guns and drugs and other goods or whatever. The Tom Atkins character says that he was part of the Air America operation.
Hi, I'm Tom Atkins, and if you love the holidays, you love eggnog. It doesn't matter when or where you have it, it's just a glorious treat. However, despite popular opinion, it does not save you from a bullet.
And the other Vietnam instance that was mentioned is Murtaugh says that Tom Atkins' character saved his life, and Riggs was asking what that was about, and he was stabbed in the lung during a battle, and Atkins' character is the one that rescued him and saved his life, and that battle that he was stabbed in is the battle that was the basis for the movie We Were Soldiers. So both We Were Soldiers and Air America are movies that Mel Gibson went on to star in. You were talking about how Donner puts a lot of like background people and kind of fills out the world, so it's not just the main actors that are populating the space and this world. And when you were saying that, I was thinking about, like even in the early scenes where, even though she's a character who needs to be a part of the story, but like the hooker that witnessed the crime, and the people that were around the hotel in that initial investigation of the murder. But then in the later scenes where they go to Dixie, the hooker's house, and you have the little kids, which their performances are terrible. Like that's one of the worst parts of the movie in terms of like listening to little Alfred trying to spit out.
Don't tell him your name, Alfred.
Yeah, that's bad. But that does feel like more of that, like building out the world with all these characters that just happen to be around and living in this real space. But also to point out in that specific scene, which I think is just by chance and by luck of when you're pointing a camera, but when the house explodes, that jet airplane that is taking off right over the house in that moment is just wild. Like,
it is.
Can you imagine being on that plane and seeing from the air some giant explosion in downtown LA and being like, what was that shit?
What's happening down there?
But yeah, I think it's just happenstance that the plane fills the frame the way that it does. But I don't know, it makes it like an even more realistic and kind of dynamic shot in that moment.
Again, it shows that when you're filmmaking back then, the environment was just as important to everything else that's going on in the scene and not just a focus on the scene itself. It's like nowadays they would just remove the plane. And it's like, why?
Exactly.
Why would you remove it? It costs a lot of money to block off an entire block in Los Angeles.
It's like, are they're just getting away with filming and letting the real world around them be the real world around them.
Murtaugh's time in Vietnam, it's also never, ever, ever made mention again, ever in this entire franchise. Not even to Riggs when he meets Riggs and asks him, like, oh, so you were Special Forces. Here's what I was part of this infantry. Nothing. Like, they never mention it again.
When Riggs talks about what he did in the war, I can't remember if Murtaugh says anything
he
about
doesn't. Those are the scenes I was wondering, why isn't he talking to him about his stuff? You know,
because he didn't do anything as crazy as like what Riggs was. Riggs was like Black Ops or whatever, whereas I think Murtaugh was just a regular infantry.
I just found it odd when he's like, oh, you're one of those Special Forces guys, that he just didn't even say, I too was in such and such. But I mean, it's not a big deal. It's just something I noticed.
Well, maybe if he's just a regular infantry, well, you would know better than me, Ben, how military people feel. But is there some, like, if you're talking to a Special Forces, you kind of feel like I can't really bring up my service because it's not.
No, not at all. Not at all. Battle's battle. Like if I was partnered up with somebody that was a military person, it's because it builds this kind of unspoken bond immediately, you know, but it's fine. I mean, the script's great. I just a little tiny stupid nitpick.
Here is my list of Lethal Weapon tropes that the first film created, and almost every film is able to keep it going. Not every film has every single one of these elements. Murtaugh's shooting style, the way that he gets his perfect aim with twisting his head and everything. We're too old for this shit. That comment and that sentiment. Murtaugh's car being damaged or his house. There are dogs worked into every screenplay in some way. The Three Stooges shows up in every screenplay to some degree. Roger's boat shows up in every screenplay to some degree. There are always hijinks at the police station. This one probably has the least amount of that, but you do kind of have that one moment where Murtaugh first does see Riggs pulling his gun out and tries to go after him and gets dropped to the floor.
Yeah, meet your new partner.
Yeah, that's what I'm accrediting as the police station hijinks in this film. It's the least amount of it across the series, but it's there. Roger being half naked in some scene throughout the movie. This one starting with him in the bathtub. Riggs chasing a vehicle on foot and almost catching it. The psych evaluations that go on throughout the series. There's an aspect of bombs in almost every film. And fighting over the driving. Who's going to be doing the driving? Those are the ones that I would say this film established, and most every film after has some aspect of that.
I don't know if this is really a trope, definitely not started by Lethal Weapon, but Riggs, his unlimited use of clips for his Beretta that just come out of nowhere in his back pocket. How many are in his pockets? But that's just an action movie. But you know, as an action movie itself, its action set pieces are placed so perfectly, and this movie's paced so well. Every action scene escalates in violence and in spectacle and in tension. You know, when you first see a helicopter for the first time and Riggs is shooting at it, you're like, okay, well now we're getting off the streets and we're gonna be in almost like a war, like a shootout, you know. And I love how each action scene grows and grows and spends as much time as it needs to keep developing its plot and what's happening with our characters throughout. And there are 31 kills in Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, I did not start looking into the kill count really.
That's all right. I got them in front of me.
That's a lot. That's a lot. That like horror movies are always like, we killed 10 people in our movie. We're crazy violent. This is 3 times the amount.
But here's the thing: you have unnamed henchmen, unnamed henchmen, another. Yeah. There's a lot of. I mean, but yeah, it's very violent. But yeah, that's a good amount of kills. It's a good amount of kills.
Mel Gibson, Danny Glover.
Come on, let's go, Raj.
No, we shouldn't go.
Let's go. Come on, Raj. Don't be a killjoy. Come on, we're back. We're bad. You're black. I'm mad.
Oh, God. Oh, God, I hate that. You ever drop a cigarette on? Oh, it burns me. God.
Jeez, I hope nobody saw that.
Put him out!
Hey, John, the magic is back. Lethal Weapon 2 came out July 7th, 1989. And the fact that this movie came out as quickly as it did and turned out to be as good as it is astonishing, because Shane Black, his scripts were getting denied constantly by Silver and even Donner, again, for being extremely dark and going, we need to go crazier and darker with this one. And they're like, no, we shouldn't do that. And obviously, just like in the first one, there's a lot of moments in this one where you know some of those darker elements carried over, because this one does get very bleak, though being somewhat bubblier, like you said, and more comedy driven in specific scenes. But this one was co-written. Well, Shane Black wrote it again with what's his name, Jeffrey Boehm, but also by the co-writer of Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. The final script, when it was turned in, you know, Silver ended up calling it brilliant, except for one thing. And this has been a big thing about Lethal Weapon 2 for years and years and years, and it's the ending. So the original script has Riggs dying. He dies.
They did shoot it.
I think they did. Yeah.
And the shot is still in the movie.
I think it's the. Oh, you know what? You're right. I think the test audiences hated it or something. Yeah, the shot is still in the movie when the shot goes way up and it's sort of the drone shot and you're leaving the boat, like, and he's laying there. Yeah,
he was dead in that moment. Murtaugh was holding him, and then they chose a different song selection to emphasize that he had not. I mean, you know that he didn't die because they added the dialogue to show that he survived and whatever. They did shoot a scene where he actually dies. I don't know, what Murtaugh's lines were or whatever to deal with that moment. But then they pull back the wide shot and then it goes into knocking on heaven's door.
That's right. Yeah. So Jeffrey Boehm's the one who took over screenplay duties for this and scrapped a lot of the Shane Black stuff. Basically, the only things that stayed was the introduction of Leo Getz and also the stilt house scene, which is awesome and really shot. That was really shot. I remember seeing a behind the scenes for Lethal Weapon 2 and they pulled that fucking thing down. Leo Getz was just a minor character in the original draft. I don't know, I mean, we'll get into Leo Getz. This is the first appearance of Leo Getz. He joins the cast, creates a really funny comic relief character for the 80s, I gotta say. Obviously overplayed, over-exaggerated in sequels, but I think he's perfectly fine in this first one because he serves a purpose in the story, which he does not in really any of the other ones. I'll break down the synopsis. The two, Riggs and Murtaugh, they're on the trail of South African diplomats who are basically using their diplomatic immunity to be involved in a lot of criminal activity. Once again, Krugerrands. What is the case they're on here? The captain at one point says this was supposed to be a routine drug bust.
That's what I hear him say. It's like, what are they doing on a drug
What
bust?
are they doing? Yeah, they drop you. One of the things I really like about part 2 is that they drop you into the story. The setup, there's no setup. Like the inciting incident has already happened, unless you want to count the inciting incident when they break into Roger's house, which kind of ignites more of a personal vendetta. But but the case is already going on, and even though they're learning new things and all that stuff as it happens, I never really fully understand what case they're on in this movie. And I guess it doesn't really matter because they took a different path with this one, where it wasn't really a mystery that needed to be solved. It was all about, we got to take these guys down. We know who they are. There's not a lot of investigating in this one. It's more of a high octane action comedy, but the case and the story are kind of secondary to, I guess, the ride.
The actual investigating and informing the audience of what this case is all about is kind of left sparse across all the movies to some degree. And they're, like you pointed out, and we could talk about how even in the sequels as well, they're always doing something that's like not really anything to do with homicide. It's in so many other realms of police work, but they also, I don't know, like, these are movies, so this is not how real police work gets done.
That's kind of the point I was going to get at, was they feel almost like the task force in this one, where, they're called out to they're called out to go round them up or something.
Round people up, not in detective investigative work.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the first one, they're investigating a case, and the case is very clearly laid out on what it is. And this one, you kind of don't know how they got involved with this or what the tip was. There's little pieces of dialogue here and there, but the fact that it is sort of, and this is one of the much stronger things I love about the second one, is we're introduced to this new element, which is a team of detectives that aid Riggs and Murtaugh throughout the film. And they're much more present in this one. Well, unfortunately, 90% of them all meet their horrific ends within the same film. But there's other movies, 3 and 4 go on to like introduce a couple of side character detectives. But this one has this really good team dynamic, pretty much led by Murtaugh and Riggs. And I always found that really great. It was something, I feel it was a good thing to introduce in the second movie.
Let's take a quick second to point out that this movie has 2 of the cast of Aliens in it. Mark Ralston plays the initial South African villain who's trying to get away, and meets his end in one of everyone's favorite scenes of the movie, where he goes to talk to his boss, standing on the drop cloth. What a great iconic moment in action cinema. And my birthday shout out lady, Jeanette Goldstein, plays one of the female cops.
He just too bad.
She's got a couple little moments where you can tell it's her.
She has a very, very unique, specific, and oddly convenient elaborate death scene. Like, we have to make sure that she is going to do a dive off of this diving board in order for her to die.
Yeah, like if she just chose not to swim that day.
Yeah.
She was originally supposed to be tortured in the Shane Black script. That character.
Yes.
John, my man, it's Jeanette Goldstein.
The chase happens at night. The very next day, we get pretty much just they go to work, and it's established that Murtaugh's daughter is going to be in a commercial, and that's going to ruin his life once everyone sees what that's all about. There's a wonderful scene, and you get the condom commercial, which is great humor.
Okay, so I want to get back to the point that you had made in your initial discussion of part 1, and that's sort of the goofy nature of the opening of this. And I 100% agree with you that it's a weird choice to start it with a Looney Tunes thing, and Riggs immediately having a ball on this car chase. What I always chalked it up to was we're immediately introduced to a different Riggs. He is still crazy, but he's happy. He has different traits in his character, which shows that good growth between 1 and 2. And I love how this one brings back his very reckless, violent nature when it needs to come out. But it introduces him in the beginning of the movie, not crying in his trailer, but having a blast on this car chase. And that chase is so much fun. It's so much fun. And it's not without its violence. There's another little chase going off in a different part of the city, where people are shot and killed. It's a really fun completely different way to open up the movie from the first one. But I always enjoyed it that Riggs kind of did act the way he did at the beginning of it, because it's showing us right off the bat, this is a happier Riggs. He's and then again, that moves on to watching the condom commercial, which is really, really funny. And I guess I always forget the guy's name, the character actor that's the carpenter that's working on the garage when he goes.
Oh yeah, he made me want to buy rubbers.
They want to make me go buy rubbers right now. That guy ad-libbed that. He was supposed to just be standing in the background.
Yeah, I liked it. She made me want to go out and buy rubbers right now.
And he said that, and it's like they were like, "Dude, we're 100% keeping that in." But other things that you get with Riggs in this movie, Wipeout. You get he's doing one-liners. Again, he's still a serious guy, and he's still very reckless about his own life and personal safety and stuff. But he feels better about his situation, his wife. He hasn't let that go, but he's no longer suicidal, and it's such a nice progression in character. My brother's always said, I loved him in the first one though, because like he's so unpredictable. I'm like, yeah, but 2 makes you wait for it. And in the final act, there he is again. He's completely stoic.
You still
you get it. Yeah, like, I'm gonna get these fuckers, Riggs or Murtaugh. I'm gonna get him and fuck him. He's out of his fucking mind at the end of it.
Murtaugh.
I need a woman.
Riggs, where are you?
I'm not a cop tonight, Roger. It's personal.
Riggs, slow down now. What are you talking about? Where are
Look, you fucked my day up. You care about yourself.
Just calm down. Just take it easy. We'll take care of it.
So yeah, I mean, I do agree. This one is funnier, obviously, with Leo Getz. I think after this movie, he overstays his welcome. I get why they put him in the other ones, but in this one, it makes sense because he is the money launderer, I believe, right? Is he the money launderer? Or the accountant?
But okay, so this is kind of back to a little bit of like they never seem to be working on the right case that they should be or in the right department. But then again, there's also this aspect of they're constantly either told to go do something or investigate something that's not supposed to be part of the main plot and then ends up being tied to it, or by happenstance they get themselves involved just by being in the wrong place at the right time.
Well, that's one of the tropes I wanted to bring up when we get to tropes in this one. This is the one that set the standard for the rest, where they're not assigned a case. They're just, this one they're already on a case, but 3 and 4, they're just walking along, and then shit finds them, which I always found kind of ridiculous.
So what's the big fucking deal? What the fuck are we doing out here?
But this one, they're on a certain case, and it steers them towards this other thing. But none of the caper makes all that much sense in this one, to my knowledge. And I've seen it a million times. Maybe I'm just stupid. They set up the villains as really, really bad guys, and there's a lot of them, and they're really, really powerful. So you're scared of the villains. You like the villains as a great contrast of what's going on. And I think introducing more of a team of cops helps with the reality of like, well, Riggs and Murtaugh, even though in the end, they end up just being the ones still standing by the end, with the exception of 1 or 2. Building on the characters, enhancing the characters, building on a scope of the second one. And I felt like this one wanted to build the scope. This one cost almost double the first one. It cost $28 million, which is still super low, but you can see it. You can see it. There's some larger stunts and some locations and stuff, but I just think this is everything a part 2 should be, and ultimately just creating bigger set pieces, but again, all serving a purpose. The action's more exciting to me anyway. I think the fact that what's amazing about filmmaking back then, the surfboard scene, the surfboard decapitation scene, that whole car chase, and the Stilts house collapsing, which was actually, like I said before, they did that. It was real. You can see the behind the scenes on YouTube. They pulled a fucking house down. Both of those big set pieces were shot in the same day. That's insane. Obviously, you have second units and stuff working on specific things, but
those felt like some of the biggest action movies had brought us up to that point. I mean, there's other stuff like Indiana Jones and stuff that there's a lot of big action in the 80s. That was like the level of a top high quality action scene was like a chase through the Hollywood Hills with the surfboard and guys hanging off of trucks. And now when you watch like a Bad Boys movie, which is just emulating what was done, it's the same kind of the concept of the scene, but it's so shot and edited and everything is so over the top that it loses something in terms of its kinetic action, the way it's shot in the Lethal Weapon movies.
We've got guns, man. We've got guns.
But watching them now with 25, 30 years of additional Hollywood action spectacle piled on top of this movie, those action scenes seem so small and quaint, but they're still filmed and shot in a way where they're kinetic and exciting.
Because it's actually happening when that house comes down. It's
sure.
It's
always
you don't see any of these shiny edges where there's some CGI and it's a fucking house. Yeah, it's an empty house built just for this scene, but if you look at those shots and how all these details are there, like there's furniture in the house, and the way it comes down is exactly how a house would come down, because it did actually come down. That scene, the Stilts house scene, only cost $500,000. I know I'm saying only, but that's not a lot of money for such a huge action set piece with that kind of stunt, with that level of stunt.
Even if they come to you and say, look, we did this stunt for real, we really pulled this house down, but they also did it with computers too. There, like you're saying, the edges are smoothed out with computers, and the explosion is amplified, and the whatever, we needed more breaking glass, this pane didn't break when it was supposed to, so let's digitally make it break. Whatever it is, they retouch reality with their computers, and it's not the same anymore.
So as I said, the budget, $28 million. It was one of the biggest hits of 1989, came out in July, perfect timing, summer blockbuster. On a $28 million budget, it grossed $147 million domestic and $227 million worldwide. Huge fucking hit, and still to this day the most successful in the franchise. That happens a lot with part twos. Part twos can tend to, I always say your sequel is financially only as good as your first movie is good. So it makes people want to come back for more. I'm not a mathematician. 227 million, again, like 10 times its budget. That's fucking great. That's fucking great.
Ladies and gentlemen, at last, Danny Glover.
This is the first one where we get a love interest for Riggs. It won't be the last. When I say first one, I mean there's only one movie before this. And I'm so glad there wasn't in part one, because that would have gotten that one was all about those two guys learning to work together and ultimately care about each other.
He's got his dog.
Yeah, and he does have Sam in this one too. But I love Sam.
Sam's got a bigger part in this one.
Sam's got a way bigger part. Yeah, he's great. He's great. He watches him have sex. So this one introduced a love interest that I think works extremely well, even though you don't really have time to establish a lot of chemistry between the two. It's more of a physical attraction. Obviously, he cares about her because what ends up happening to her really sparks back all the crazy dark feelings that he had about Vicky, his wife, who got killed in the car crash. But Rika is, she's working for the South African consulate. She clearly doesn't like her job, but she probably just wants to be in the United States. I think there's little hints here and there that's what she's there. That's what she's really there for. But so Riggs kind of stalks her and goes to the grocery store. You did that back then when you liked somebody. You followed them so you could ask them out. But this movie spends a lot of time with Riggs and Murtaugh apart. And I like that, because that is, again, you get the buildup of the satisfaction of when they get back together for the final couple action stunts pieces. But they are separated for, I want to say it's probably the whole second act, where, Murtaugh is off with Leo, and we follow Riggs on his little, his little love affair thing. And that ends in this great, awesome, just Riggs. This is Riggs that we've never really seen. He's stealing machine gun. I mean, we've seen, but we hadn't seen yet in this movie. Just stealing machine guns and hiding under his trailer and getting up and just blasting everybody on the beach. It's such a great action hero action scene.
What the hell are you doing?
Is this 1014 Pacific Coast Highway?
No! This is 814 Pacific Coast Highway!
Sorry, my mistake.
No problem! No problem!
It's just like, fuck, this is the Riggs. This is the Riggs I've been fucking waiting for this whole movie. And then that gets worse because he ends up getting caught and finding out, literally right here in this moment on the docks, he finds out that the lead side henchman, the right-hand man, so he's like, he's taunting Riggs. He's like, you know what? I'm the one that killed your wife. And you were getting close to us for whatever case that was. But I was going to run you off the road. And then I pulled up this like soaking wet mop of hair to see this woman's face. Oh, God, dude, that is just... I don't care if it's convenient. It's what the story needed to get Riggs back to the dark side. But before he even has time to react to that, he does react. He growls and tries to fight, but they push him in the water, weighted down by chains and a straitjacket, which is earlier foreshadowed with him getting out of the straitjacket for money by dislocating his shoulder, which I have a lot of experience with, but I never do it on purpose. When he's going down in the water, we see Rika, just a horrifying image of her just... And she's just sitting there and she's basically staring at him, but she's completely dead. That was a fucking shock. I remember in the theater, just like, oh my God, like that chick's dead, So then our very first second, he comes up, pops his shoulder back in, and then we immediately cut to him just rage murdering these guys with the car doors and just breaking their necks with his hand. And the whole rest of the movie, he's Riggs, amplified to 11, mimicking more of his behavior in the first movie. And it's such a wonderful payoff and build up and wait for it to happen. I just fucking love it. It's fucking awesome.
I think it's one of the genius moves of this, like you were saying, the screenplay and the approach to this film. It's like the kind of starts off with the energy and a little bit more of the lightheartedness, and then you interject characters like Leo that add so much humor to the movie, but it's a build up to and makes you wait and have that anticipation for the Riggs that we knew from the first film, and you still get it. You get enough of it. It's not just like, because I think even the later films try to have those moments, but you kind of get it for like 5 minutes of the movie instead of a real section of the movie. Your point, like about the change in his demeanor and the physical side of him, like when Murtaugh gets to the Stilts house, Riggs won't even look over the brim of his cap. He's like in his own pain right there, and doesn't even want to have a human connection in that moment to his best friend, the person he is closest to in this world, and he can barely even look at him because
he's not going to let him talk him out of it.
Yeah,
he's in a fucking zone where he's just going to kill these guys, and he's not going to stop till they're all dead. And Riggs just plays it so fucking good. And like the scene you're talking about, I love it that you brought that up when he shows up in his truck and he's just looking straight ahead. He never looks at Roger. The biggest fun fact for me in Lethal Weapon 2, when the South African waiter that Riggs falls out the window with and land in the pool, guess what's in the background? Nakatomi Plaza from Die Hard. And you can see it, and it's both produced by Jill Silver.
Thank you for pointing this out, Ben, because not just for the fact that this movie also has Mary Trainor in it as a character, obviously not the same character she plays in the Valverde verse. She is a different character, but the Nakatomi Plaza existing in this movie, in my opinion, gives me the right to now connect all of Lethal Weapon to the Valverde verse. So now we've extended it with 4 new movies, 2 that are some of the best action movies ever made, and the Valverde verse now has Lethal Weapon in it.
Well, this one, to some extent, continues the trope of Murtaugh's house. Not really. I mean, he's building on a garage and, they break in and stuff, but it's the really big, not the first time, but it's Trisha's car they introduce, she's got a new car. Why they drive that so much, I can't remember that detail, but they just destroy this car in so many ways. Even just Leo opening the car door on the wrong side and just oncoming traffic just knocks it off. It's hilarious. That car just gets beat to shit in this movie. It's so funny.
Well, also even to the point that when the toilet explodes, it lands on top of the car.
Yes.
Out of anything that it could have landed on around the property's perimeter, it lands right on the hood of the car.
So this movie introduces, and it does it really, really well, because it ends up pretty much becoming useful. I don't want to say useful in the other sequels quite as much as this one, but Riggs, he's absolutely right. When you've dislocated your shoulder once, it will dislocate again. It's just a fact. As far as him popping it out himself, I'm sure that can be done, but I would never want to try it. Now, in hindsight, obviously, you see it as a setup, but obviously when I was a kid watching it, I did not know how it was going to come into play to save his life later in the movie. Yeah, it happens in the other ones, but it's usually just more of a callback.
A little bit of the genius in initial scene where he's getting out of the straitjacket. When you first see it, you're thinking it plays more into everyone in the department still kind of sees him as crazy, and that's why he's in a straitjacket. And they're just, they're playing with him. He's on board with this. He's getting his nose tickled by Jeanette Goldstein with the dollar and all that stuff. Like, he's totally on board with this being a fun moment. But I always kind of looked at it as like, the crazy man starts part 2 in a straitjacket. Like, it just plays into his crazy side, but clearly it's there as a bigger plant and payoff for later in the movie. But I think that the straitjacket really does take your mind a little bit more to him being seen as crazy than, oh, this is just obvious setup for him to use the shoulder thing later.
Why the hell do you do this to yourself, Riggs? Well, who else am I going to do it to? None of them.
What a great line.
Why the hell do you do this to yourself, Riggs?
Well, who else could I do it to? I mean, none of them will let me.
This is the one that sets in motion a lot more of the police station banter and the getting yelled at by the captain. This is the one that really sets that off. And the other 2 movies after this that followed, where they tried to team them up with other cops, didn't quite work the same for me. But now that Riggs and Murtaugh are just best buds, there's so much good banter between them, and their bond is so great. The fact that he's like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, when you two, Riggs, get out of here, and Riggs just looks at him. He just,
Riggs, out.
Stares at him. He's like, I'm not going anywhere.
Well, and that moment when Riggs doesn't know how to bring the words out, like, he's wanting to tell him, like, I love you, I don't want to die. I don't know exactly what words he was trying to get out of his mouth, but the sentiment. And Riggs is just looking at him like he also kind of can't get the words out. But he's just like, we're not going to die here, man. We're not going to fucking die here. That moment between the two of them, like, there are some really great dramatic moments, not just in 1 and 2. I think 3 and 4 also find ways to have some of those moments. But 1 and 2 really, really do show their relationship in a very realistic, beautiful way.
That bathroom must have stunk.
Oh, my God. It's weird, the thoughts that go through your head when you watch a movie, a little bit more of a critical and not just entertaining. That was a thought that I had. How do normal people use the restroom? Well, you take a shit and then you go to grab toilet paper. So
why would you, if you want to blow somebody up on the toilet, why would you write boom, you're dead? And
of course not. But I'm not gonna.
If you don't have that, though, he dies and the movie's over. So
I think the reality of a real life morning shit situation is there would be a shit sitting in the toilet that he would be afraid to flush because he doesn't want to trigger something. So everyone would be dealing with that sitting there.
Yeah. I know.
It's the reality of the situation. It would not have been flushed down, and it would be there, which is gross.
It would be there. That bathroom would be just brutal, man.
Let's go on 3. The countdowns that they do.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You go on 3 or 1, 2, 3, then go, all of those conversations throughout the next 3 films. And the other one, even though we kind of had Riggs chasing vehicles on foot, they kind of also establish in this one and every film moving forward, there is also Riggs hanging off of vehicles and fighting somebody while hanging from a moving vehicle.
This is the most violent of the franchise, coming in at 34 kills, which is, I mean, not many more than one, but...
I would have thought it would be considerably more based off of just, it feels like that much more of a violent film.
There's more, like, on-screen deaths than just straight-up cannon fodder, you know? Like, there's just more. I mean, you have all these cops that have their individual death scenes. You know, it feels so much more violent than the first one because you witness, like, you know, a lot of individual deaths. So I think that plays a big part in it too. But I think it is the creme de la creme of how you make a movie sequel. Make it work. Don't make it, you know, a lot of stuff, John, you and I have been talking about with this one. It does not repeat beats in the first movie. Yes, they're still cops. They're still partners. They're still fighting crime. There's still action. But it's a very different movie than the first one because it doesn't go through those standards. You know, getting called into the captain's office, introduce a case, go out, investigate, craziness ensues. This one is off to the races, sometimes at its detriment, where you are trying to keep up with what they're actually trying to solve or do, as we've mentioned. But I love that about this one. The structure, it's very different. They get Murtaugh's family out of the movie really quick, which you kind of miss them because you only get them in those quick scenes in the beginning. But it makes sense for them not to be in this movie because there's no room. And there's no, like you had mentioned, the time frame of this movie, there's just really no, everything is so fast. There's no room left for the family. And it makes sense to hide them away after the home invasion thing.
Actually, I guess that actually makes some sense right now because in the timeline I'm pushing, morning with the toilet bomb, that same evening is when they come back to the house to watch the videotape with the boat and get attacked and have the nail gun and all that stuff. And the family is completely gone from the house in that moment. And that kind of makes sense. It's almost like he had to hide his family away. They're obviously in real danger. It just happened that morning. That's the part I find weird, is that like he's not with his family that evening. As a cop, I guess that's what you have to do. You gotta go after the bad guys if they're coming after you. You can't just like.
Well, they broke into your house and showed you how easily they could kill everyone. So yeah, he's getting them the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
And even though it sucks not to see his family as much, it makes sense that they're not in it.
I mean, maybe there's a line that I'm misremembering or whatever where he talks about where the family's at. Because yeah, they're
at Trisha's sister's house in Bellflower.
Got it. See,
he says it when they're walking back into the station the next day. Continuing my final thoughts on this film, I think it's one of the best sequels. Builds on the characters, I've already said that. Gives us bigger stakes, already said that. Introduces new characters, some who stick around and some who do not. But I love Lethal Weapon 2. I love it.
I love it too. It's up there as one of the greatest.
I have one question for you, John. After watching Lethal Weapon 2, I have one question for you. Would you eat chili with crushed Oreos in it? Yeah, he says it several times in the movie, and then he's making it. So when he goes, you know, all I know how to really make, Rika, is chili. Do you like yours with or without crushed Oreos?
I'm not exactly a gourmet cook. In fact, the only thing I know how to make is chili. Do you like your chili with or without crushed Oreos?
With, of course.
Wow. I don't think I've ever paid attention to that. See, that's my point of like kind of rewatching this, not taking in every line of dialogue.
Answer the question, John. Answer the question.
Answer my question!
I'm gonna go without.
Would you try it though?
I guess I would try it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, are you gonna make them?
I would try it too. No, I will never make that. But
We're moving on to part 5.
I haven't seen that one, dude. Wait, hang on. I haven't seen that one. That's fucking great.
Please don't do it.
I think both of them now look even older than that. But
I know, yeah.
That's so fucking great. Yeah, I don't want to leave the Weapon 5. I don't. There was talk about it in 2008. I'm like, okay, that could work. But that is fucking 17 years ago. You know?
Yeah. Like mid 2000s was a prime time to either do another Lethal Weapon or a Mad Max that had Mel Gibson. They missed both opportunities. Obviously, we've gone in different directions with the Mad Max stuff, and it's fine. But we could have had, you know, sequels with these guys in the mid 2000s. But now the time is long gone. I would not want to see it.
Rog. What? Aren't you gonna miss all this good stuff when you retire? Aren't you gonna miss it a little bit? Huh?
Lethal Weapon 3. So everyone is back this time, except for Shane Black. Shane Black was offered the job to write Lethal Weapon 3, but he turned it down. So Jeffrey Boehm, he comes back, and it really shows because all the darker and grittier elements from the previous films have been washed away. Now Donner and Boehm prefer to lean into the comic side of the buddy cop genre that they helped create. Originally, Joe Pesci was not supposed to return, but with the shift in tone to more comedy and Pesci's rising star power with hits like Home Alone and an Oscar for whatever fucking movie he won an Oscar for.
Goodfellas.
You should say his Oscar for Gone Fishing.
Which is basically like a sequel to Lethal Weapon 4, where it's Leo Getz and Roger Murtaugh finally taking out that boat.
I forgot that's who they teamed up on that one. Donner had him written back in. Wish he hadn't. Another major script change was Riggs' love interest. The original plan was to have Riggs and Rihanna, the daughter of Glover's character, become romantically involved. And I think that's really gross. Not just their age, but because of the relationship, how it started.
My sister's Sherry. She's in love with this guy named Mary. Oh, Nicholas.
12-year-old high school kid when they met.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. I can't believe the writers had that and obviously filmed some scenes that still have elements of that show up in the film. So, because originally the internal affairs agent, Lorna Cole, she was originally written as a man who had similarities to Riggs. He was wild, erratic, and had an intense side and was supposed to be kind of a rival to Riggs. But obviously they rewrote that character to become the Lorna Cole character and the last really great addition to the Lethal Weapon family.
I didn't know Lorna Cole was originally supposed to be a guy, but there's a funny line in the movie where he goes, no, I slept with Sergeant Cole. And Murtaugh goes, Sergeant Cole from Traffic? And he goes, no, that's her uncle.
Yeah, I caught that line. That's really funny that, like, there actually is a male Cole, on the force and they're related. Yeah, that could be a little nod to where the character started from.
Slept with Sergeant Cole. Hey, Sergeant Cole from Traffic. No, not Sergeant Cole from Traffic. Lorna, Sergeant Cole from Traffic's her uncle.
Some of the rumored casting possibilities for the Lorna Cole character were Michelle Pfeiffer, Winona Ryder, who was only 20 at the time. Again, kind of weird.
You can't work for internal affairs if you're 20. It takes a while.
Yeah, it didn't really make sense. But, they're trying to pick hot actresses of that time. And Jodie Foster, who would later team up with Donner and Gibson on the comedy western Maverick. So I think she could have actually been a nice fit to that role if they had gone there. But she wouldn't have been as believable in the physical part of the role.
No, she would.
Which is a really important part that Rene Russo brings. In fact, Rene Russo won out when she read with Gibson and proved that she could match his toughness while still seeming like a believable love interest for the Riggs character.
I've always thought that Rene Russo and Michelle Pfeiffer have like a very similar acting style and sassiness.
I could see that, yeah.
Almost even like their vocal range is very similar. So that could have I could see why that Rene Russo, they couldn't get Michelle Pfeiffer, but I think Rene Russo's perfect in this role.
One of the highlights and really like the one new star that they brought to part 3, because the villain does not really stand out as they did in the previous films. The villainous gun runner Jack Travis could have been played by the likes of Jack Nicholson, Robert De Niro, or Michael Keaton, but they went with a cheap version and hired Stuart Wilson.
Who's great 2 years later in No Escape, by the way.
He is. I like him in certain roles. He's really good, if I remember correctly, he's really good in Zorro as well as a villain.
Let me see. I'm trying to picture Jack Nicholson. Hey, wait a second. We could put our initials in that.
How do you write women so well?
I think of a man, and I take away reason and accountability.
We can put our initials in there. Yeah? Jesus Christ.
That is my favorite moment for Stuart Wilson's character. Yeah, he has his moments. I don't hate Wilson or the Travis character, but
he's underwritten. He's underwritten for sure.
Yeah, and Just doesn't live up to what we had gotten in the previous entries. The story takes place during Murtaugh's final week before retirement. Riggs and Murtaugh stumble, again, onto a case through an armored car chase that leads to a corrupt ex-cop who's selling weapons stolen from the police evidence locker.
They only get more convenient from here, folks.
Yeah. This time, the socially conscious message for the third film is against gangs and gun violence. And that's a little subplot that I guess you didn't remember as much in this film. It does take up a good chunk of the film. But the main focus...
Boys in the Hood had just come out. And it was
I could see that.
You can totally feel that.
Break yourself, fool!
But the main focus is now on the leads and how they'll deal with this transitional period and what might be the last week of their working relationship. All the action and thrills become secondary to a plethora of subplots that give the film an uneven and unfocused feel.
Yeah, I agree. This is kind of the most convoluted, even though it's so simple, but it feels convoluted with everything going on.
Yeah.
You almost forget about the plot of the movie, the plot of the caper. That's in my subplots. Here's my list of subplots, and the caper is the last subplot in my list. It's the gang kids shooting, Leo selling houses, the rookie cops storyline, Rianne having an acting career, Riggs trying to quit smoking, Roger having a stalker, and then the villain storyline. I'm gonna say there's one more, and then there's.
I'm sure there's more. That was just
then there's
random,
the love. Then there's the love story subplot. Yeah, there's a bunch.
But I actually kind of enjoy that. That's one of the few parts of the movie I still really enjoy. I do like how this film, the third film, which anytime you make 3 movies, it's a trilogy. Even if you have plans to continue your series beyond that, I like that there is kind of a bookend to this trilogy with the scene in the bathtub at his retirement party, bookending his birthday in the bathtub at the beginning of the first film.
Well, I have a question for one of your subplots. So the gang shooting, I watched this movie twice for our rewatch, as I mentioned. Why didn't... Okay, so Murtaugh shoots a gang member who's shooting at him with an Uzi or some kind of automatic weapon and kills him. And it turns out to be like his son's old childhood friend who became a gang member. And then the parents hate Murtaugh for shooting him. Fine. But Murtaugh, and maybe Murtaugh's just a really good man. Why didn't he blame Riggs for that gang member shooting? They were simply going to eat burgers and make a burger, and Riggs just sees some cars pull up somewhere that looks suspicious. He should have just let that go, right? It's lunchtime. It's like, who cares what's going on over there?
Yeah, I mean, in the long scheme of things, I'm sure, when you replay things in your head and you're like, the order of events, I wish this didn't happen so that wouldn't have to happen. The way they try to connect that storyline even to the main plot in any way is because the cop killer bullets, these young kids are running around the street and they're shooting these dangerous bullets that have cop killer bullets. So it was at the end of the day, they're out there, they are cops, they are out there to stop that dangerous situation, the sale of guns, the sale of this dangerous ammunition that when turned on the police becomes so deadly. You could kind of tie it back to they were doing police work at the end of the day. It doesn't matter who's on the other side of the law at that moment.
I think Riggs might be racist. He sees
there is definitely racism, and
he sees 2 cars pull up full of young African Americans. He's like, oh, something must be going down.
That's racist! That's racist!
But if he didn't go there looking for trouble and he just sat there continuing, I would have stayed there and waited for that burger that Murtaugh.
That's true. You had a burger going. You could have just
and he's chewing on an onion like an apple. Fast Eddie's.
Oh, is that the name of the restaurant?
That's the name of that little burger shack, yeah.
Okay. It reminds me of The Hard Way when they stopped for the frog dogs.
For the frog dogs, yeah.
Frog dogs, yeah.
We're going to introduce our friend here to the pleasures of a frog dog.
Frog a dog, huh?
Tasty.
Really only one new character worth mentioning, which is Lorna. She really is, as I was saying, kind of the last addition, as this is the original version of Fast and the Furious, and they keep adding to their family with each movie, and everybody that comes in becomes family.
No! We're family!
I
wish there was more with the rookie cop, because you had mentioned that subplot, and I'm glad you did. Like, if there's a couple of more scenes there, it would have hit a lot.
It could have meant something, and maybe they filmed some more, and it just didn't make it. But
because you could tell the intention was to make it hit kind of hard, because he's sort of like a young Riggs, you know, because they see him at the shooting range and stuff like that. But yeah, it would have been cool if there's one or two more quick scenes, but it's already overstuffed. So
well, and it's overstuffed because Pesci having to come back and just being super annoying. It's amazing how he goes from everything he does in part 2 is hilarious and perfect for that character and memorable. And the reason that we love Leo Getz and part of the reason we love Joe Pesci is everything that he does in that movie. And there's not a bad moment with him in that movie.
And his character is driving the story through. You know, he's a big part of the story.
But he's doing the same thing. It's just there's just a difference in the writing, in the jokes. And maybe to your point that he's not integral to the story, even though they make him. It's just amazing how quickly that character was great and then terrible. Like, just get him off the screen. He is the worst part of this movie.
He really is, and like the dyed hair.
Yeah, all the other comedy in the movie, whether it's Riggs and Murtaugh's banter at the beginning with the bomb and stuff like that, I find that really funny. I think, like you were pointing out, that scene at the burger stand and him like putting the onion in his mouth, chew on this or whatever. Like, their delivery to each other, there's humor there, but it comes across realistic, like the way people really might talk to each other in a real friendship relationship. Compared to other buddy cop movies like Bad Boys or Rush Hour, where you actually have comedians in those roles and it feels like they're doing stand-up.
Oh, you motherfucker, you can't fight. Look at you.
Mike.
No, I want to know if the nigga, I want somebody gonna take my niece out. I want to know if
their banter does not feel real to each other. They're doing stand-up back and forth. And so I really appreciate the buddy cop comedy and kind of realism, even though 1 and 2 are so much more realistic. Each film you go along, 3 is the one that kind of starts to break the realism. There's still enough of it there, and there's still some really real moments. There's still some great dramatic moments between them, like on the boat, where they're trying to talk about the retirement and what it means to Riggs as well. He's like, you guys are my family. You got I got 3 kids and they're yours or whatever. Like, that's a really great scene that matches up with stuff that you fall in love with from the first 2, where you get the drama and you really get to know these characters in a real way that you normally wouldn't get to see in action movies.
You selfish bastard! You selfish bastard! You're just thinking about yourself, goddamn. It's not my problem. You're the only family I got. I got 3 beautiful kids. I love them. They're yours. Trish does my laundry. I live in your icebox. I live in your life.
I remember I went and saw this movie with my older brother in the theater, and the opening was so funny because you get that crazy psychotic Riggs where he's just like, I don't care which wire. Wait. You want me? Did you say red or did you say blue?
Did I say blue?
Did I say blue? Like, it's so funny that he's literally toying with their lives like he's suicidal again.
Help! Oh! What? A minute ago you said blue.
Did I say blue?
Riggs, you said blue.
Oh, I meant red.
You sure?
Look, Raj, we can do it your way if you like.
My way, I don't have...
All these movies have this like little hint of like Three Stooges, as you said in the last show. Like, there's always Three Stooges in there. 3 and 4, both of them like equally not only have Three Stooges, but they start to kind of act like Three Stooges.
Yes.
And like, we got busted. Like, they blow up the building, and then we got busted down to patrolmen. It's like, what the fuck is this? Lethal Weapon? What am I watching here? Why are they wearing like this? Is like Police Academy now.
No, that's no problem.
Leaning in, they said we had these 2 really dead serious movies. Let's lean into the humor on this one, because buddy cop genre had really been established by that point, and it was leaning into the humor more on most buddy cop films. And yeah, so that was the direction the series went.
Look.
As they got older, like the serious action stuff becomes less believable anyway. Not that they aged out at the period that they had made 4, but
Mel Gibson was still in his late 30s when the 4th one came out, so he was still really young in part 3.
The longer it goes on, we're going to end up with that. Lethal Weapon 5 coming at you, rolling its wheelchair right at you.
Leisure weapon.
Happy to see that Kamen returned. Very important element of the Lethal Weapon series. I don't know what a Lethal Weapon movie would be without him. As well as Clapton and Sanborn are back on the axe and the sax and doing their thing. I still think the music's great in this movie. I love the song at the beginning.
Yeah, from Sting, dude. That song's great.
It Had to Be Me. That is a great intro. Even though you have to sit through the entire credits and watch the fire and stuff, it's great. I love it. I mean, that's back in the day where that's what we had was credits.
It's hard to say it. I hate to say it.
So
it felt like almost like a Bond intro. I mean, it was just fire. It wasn't all
yeah.
But it was like, oh, okay, so we're doing this.
It is out the bonds of friendship.
But dude, that intro, that opening credit sequence made you think you're gonna watch a very serious movie.
Yeah, I know. And then part 2, which is very serious, starts with Looney Tunes music. What's going on?
Part 2 started the trend of like, let's have an original song from an artist. Part 2 had George Harrison doing a great song.
Is that the outro? Whatever plays as the...
Yeah, that George Harrison song. And so this one had the Sting song at the beginning and like this awful Elton John song to close it off at the end.
Got a dog and everything. I figure I can, make ends meet.
There's a hungry road I can only hope's gonna eat me up inside.
Not the DP until the third film, but Jan de Bont takes over, and you can see a similarity to his Die Hard kind of lens flare style show up in this film.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
But I do think it still matches the look of the previous films as well.
Honestly, like when I rewatched this movie and I watched the motorcycle and the train where Gibson or Riggs gets on the front of the train and then gets onto a motorcycle, that whole chase, I was like, this guy's doing his speed run through kind of. I don't know. It kind of had that vibe to it a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Or yeah. Kind of.
I mean, I know he didn't direct it. He just shot it. But I wonder if that gave him any kind of ideas or whatever.
Yeah.
For how to shoot. I know that at the time in 1991, when they were filming this, the Rancho Verde or Mesa Verde construction site or whatever, that was a very, very, very expensive shoot. Burning that whole thing down. I guess they built that set more than once, or at least parts of it, because they really dude, Murtaugh's face, it looks like regular Murtaugh, but he has a mask on. But yeah, like the final big showdown at the end was like, I guess it was $10 million to shoot it initially, and then they had to go back and like reshoot scenes. But again, guys, this is 1992. It was all practical. You had to build these things. You had to do the pyrotechnics.
Located in Lancaster, apparently, is where that housing was. Owners of it were excited that Hollywood wanted to come in and make Lethal Weapon there. They're like, great, they're going to destroy it. We won't have to do anything. But the filmmaking is they couldn't completely flatten it. They had to shoot in a way where, you're using fake flames and things like that so you can do multiple takes. And so at the end, there still was a lot of it left behind. And the company that owned it was like left with, they still had to figure out a way to get in there and demolish it. They were hoping Hollywood kind of demolish it for them. But it didn't go that way. But they certainly destroyed sections of it, but
probably got paid some good money to finish.
Oh yeah, Hollywood, like you said, 10 million or whatever, they got a portion of that. But they also blew up 2 buildings for the movie, as you mentioned, the opening bomb scene. That was a building in Orlando that they really blew up, and it's impressive the shots that they pull off for that. But it doesn't amount to much, as you pointed out. It doesn't amount to anything. It's more integral to the prop.
Super expensive stunt that serves no purpose in the story other than it's really fun to watch.
There was supposed to be this mad bomber. That's why there's 2 bombs in the movie, but they never really make mention of it. And the second one, most people didn't even know took place because it's, a stinger at the end. So if there had been like even a couple lines throughout that was like the real case they're supposed to be involved on while they get embroiled in these other cases. But yeah, there was supposed to be kind of like this mad bomber loose in the town. That's why we have those 2 bombing scenes, but it didn't really work its way into the script in any real way.
Yeah, and then when you have the bomb squad captain or whatever that was there for the toilet scene in part 2, he just bumps into him in the bathroom. Hey Riggs, you trip any wrong wires lately?
Hey, Becca, how's it hanging?
Hey, Riggs.
Yeah.
Clip any wrong wires?
No, I haven't done that for a couple of days, no.
Oh, come on, it's our job. He would never talk to him again. If that happened. He would just be, did you fucking foil? You ruined everything, our whole fucking case. We could have disarmed that in 2 seconds. Like,
yeah, that's very true. But
he's just like, hey, you tripping any wrong wires lately, Riggs? Hey, have a good day. She's internal affairs. It's like
the big train, the police station.
That's my favorite scene in the movie. Feels
the most Lethal Weapon-ish.
Yeah, and you know how you always talk about how like Cameron, he escalates his action scenes where things build and build and build, and like this one starts out like at that, and I love it where the kids like, the LAPD has subways, you know, and like they go down there and there's a shootout, and you're like, okay, well this scene will probably end because there's a shootout, and it's like, no. Then it goes to like Riggs on the front of that train, which is really cool. That scene's great, and then it turns into a big car chase. I think that's the best scene in the movie for me personally.
A car chase where the villain gives the worst directions. Everything he tells his driver to do sends him down the wrong way and like off of a bridge or whatever. He's constantly like, oh, turn here. And it's like, no, that was a bad choice.
And that scene ends with Riggs getting his trademark dislocated shoulder.
And that works for me. You know how things
works for me too
in the movies? I think that one works pretty well.
Yeah, considering how he fell, I mean, that would definitely pop out. Yeah, the armored car one, it sucks for me because it like, even as a kid, I was like, well, wait a minute, they just like saw this happening in the middle of the street. Like, there's no tension in that scene because you have that obnoxious woman singing and like, hey, Roger, you're so sexy. It's like, dude, come on, man.
Boom, don't hit him. Don't you worry about nothing, baby, because I got something for you.
I mean, it gives you elements of what you want from a Lethal Weapon action scene, but it lacks the tension that you want or any real reason for it to be happening other than just we needed an action scene at that moment.
We need them to stumble upon.
Exactly. But another fight scene that I do kind of like is Lorna beats the five guys into hamburger patties.
Yeah.
That was a Five Guys hamburger reference.
I love how she puts the car jack and just slams it down on dude's foot. Like, she's
little
resourceful.
Moments like that with the car jack. I think it's choreographed in a way where it makes it seem believable that she could handle that situation. Like, it's not just, you know, her beating them with her punches and her kicks. There's a lot of other things she utilizes in the scene to pull it off.
Well, and I love it that Riggs knows that she can handle it because Murtaugh's like, let me go help. And he's like, no, wait, watch this.
Yeah,
Riggs.
watch this.
As a
the
gift.
Thing of beauty.
Maybe I should go with her, Riggs.
I don't know. I want you to see something, Rod. She has a gift. Watch this.
No, I love their relationship. Like, it really is pretty much every scene with them, especially, I think it's the first scene is, I guess, in the elevator, but like later when they're in the captain's office, like talking about some of the humor in this movie that comes across as pretty realistic, although somewhat over the top. Like, I love the scene in the captain's office and the way they're giving each other the eyes, like the cross-eyed looks and stuff. Like, I just love their chemistry all throughout the movie.
You know, you have the Rika thing in part 2, and then this one, it's like, oh, this is somebody much more suited for long term with Riggs, you know? But I think one of the funniest scenes in the series is in that elevator where Riggs notices that she's internal affairs, so he starts whispering to Raj, but making sure she can hear it, that he's on the take. It's fucking hilarious.
Well, you deserve it, man. It's been those miserable drug dealers getting it.
What are you talking about?
Hey, don't sweat it. You laundered it, didn't you? They can't trace it if you laundered it. I'm happy. That's a what? I've never been to Portugal.
Yeah, I think the laughs really work in this movie. I don't think of it as like a comedy. I don't go to it for its comedy, but I think it works well, especially in contrast to how comedic so many other buddy cop movies really seem to lean into the comedy moving forward. From that era.
For sure. I mean, a lot of them are set up that way. Like 1 and 2 clearly were not, with the exception of like banter. And I agree. I don't think 3 or 4 should ever be like put in buddy cop comedy like categories. They're buddy cop action movies. 3 and 4 just leaned a lot more into what I think certain people thought they wanted from the rest of the franchise, or maybe we don't need to be so brooding anymore. Let's just make some fun movies or whatever. Some of the goofy stuff in 3 and 4 kind of make you think, well, are they trying to make a comedy? But at the end of the day, you know, they're serious enough to keep it out of that category.
I really don't like the rookie cops. Like, it's his fucking birthday that day, that like he only has basically one scene in the movie, really, other than, you know, you meet him at the shooting range, but his other scene is, you know, he runs into them just in the hallway when they're off to do action, and he knows it, so he follows them and says, I'm gonna go. It's my birthday.
Love it though that he goes, woo! He's all
so
excited.
Every moment that he's involved in that scene, I kind of hate.
I kind of wish that he had just taken like a shot to the arm or something. It would have been, I don't know, like the movie has been like kind of silly up until this point, and then it's like this kid gets killed, and then they never make mention of it again.
I think just take out the line about it being his birthday.
Happy birthday, kid.
The cop killer bullets are fucking stupid. They shoot through, like for him, they shoot through an iron barrel or whatever. Okay, maybe that's possible, but I do not believe that you could shoot through the metal scoop of a bulldozer.
I was going to say, don't get me started on the ending where it goes through that bulldozer.
No, I don't buy that one.
That is the stupidest ending of all these movies for sure right there. That was so
But even
dumb.
the barrel and the, you know, shooting through 2 plates or whatever, like, I'm not a gun guy. I don't know. But maybe there are bullets that totally do that shit.
Cop killers!
Another really dumb moment is Pesci, knowing the villain, you know, just happens to be in the police station and sees an image on a TV screen and says, "Who's that guy? I know that guy. I know where he is. I know what he likes. He likes hockey.
Yeah.
He likes to sit over there."
Hey, I know this guy. What are you watching, Geraldo?
What did you say?
I said, I know the guy.
Whole hockey scene does not need to be in the movie. It's so lame.
Because it takes place. Fuck that.
And I just remember they were trying to mimic a funny line he did in part 2 but in 3 he's like, let me think. Somebody brought a monkey because the monkey knocked over a salad bar.
Somebody brought a monkey because the monkey knocked over the salad bar.
Another thing that really rubs me the wrong way as a hockey fan, the rules of a hockey arena is you stop people from walking when the game is in play. So all this bullshit of letting them walk up and down the aisles while the game is in play, fine, it does happen at the hockey arenas. There's a lot going on. You can't stop everybody, or you're allowed to get up and walk down to the restroom. You just can't go back to your seat. Whatever, that's a very specific rule. But the one that rubs me the most the wrong way, towards the end of that scene, or like when they're down on the ice, they've opened the little side panel that the Zamboni drives in, and that people come out onto the ice to service the ice, move the net, whatever. That thing is wide open. The game would not be continuing. There is no reason that a ref would blow his whistle and allow players to continue playing while all that's going on. While there are people running across the ice, waving guns, falling down, being shot, all of these things happening, yet because it's a movie, you have to see these players in the background still skating around like they're playing a hockey game.
It leads to one of the other dumbest moments that's supposed to be funny, where the dumb wound. I'm just like, why is anybody buying this?
Yeah. And then the doctors actually do like tests on him. They know these guys were trying to fuck with him. Like, I think the doctor would maybe catch that and be like, we don't need to do that to him. But
that
whatever.
doctor was a moron. He's like, what's a dumb wound? It's like, come on, dude. Just, yeah. This movie, I guess it takes place over a little bit more time than 1 or 2 does, which is, both of those are like a couple of days, 3 days.
It's 8 days from his retirement, and it ends. Right. I guess it takes 8 days because we see it end on his retirement day.
So in 8 days, and we can probably take 2 or 3 of those out, discount 2 or 3 of those out before they meet, or before Riggs goes on his first little adventure with Lorna. So let's say 5 days. And at the end of the movie, he tells her,
I love you.
That's pretty quick.
Trust me, buddy, it happens.
It's pretty
7
quick.
days.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's a tiny little thing, but I was like, "Whoa!" I forgot that he said, "I love you."
It
like,
does though. 7 days for me. So
all right, well, okay.
It can happen.
I mean, 7 days you could fall in love, but do you say it in 7 days? But
I did.
Anyway. Oh wow! Holy shit!
I got a fever.
Lethal Weapon tropes. This one has it all except for, surprisingly, one that really seems like it needs to be in every movie is Murtaugh's shooting style, where he cocks his head. The ending, when he shoots not the bad guy, but like the secondary bad guy, he didn't do it. Just surprisingly, Murtaugh's shooting style did not show up in part 3. And then the other thing that didn't show up was any property damage, whether it's his car or his house, which is in every other movie. And this one, not that they took the action to his home, which clearly would give us a possibility for that, but they did have the subplot of they were trying to sell their home and Leo being their real estate agent. That alone could have been something where just Leo makes some stupid mistake and the house gets damaged on a small level, not like driving a car through it. Not that I would have wanted more Leo humor. It is the worst thing in the movie. If they really were trying to keep all tropes in the movie, he could have done something to damage the house while showing it to the real estate people or something.
Well, he does say it has termites, but I'm actually glad
Okay, there you go. I'll take that.
Yeah, I'll take that over a scene of Leo driving the car through the house. Yeah, less Leo the better in this fucker.
This movie had a pretty modest budget of $35 million. You mentioned the previous one was around 27 or something.
Yeah, 28. Yeah,
28. So yeah, not a huge increase for clearly where the series, it was a cash cow, and sequels were, by the early 90s, that was Hollywood's direction was let's have these franchises and make them go forever. So I think they could have pumped a little more money into this and possibly got one of those big names for the villain, and it would have made this a lot better. Obviously, they'd have to rewrite the part to have a substantial part.
Hi, Billy. Jack. Hi, Billy.
Carol the waitress, Simon the...
Maybe we would have had to lose the gang subplot, and that would give us time for more of the villain story. Probably would have a way better movie if we had just gone with any of those 3 possibilities as a villain.
Yeah, none of these movies really like there's not a lot of star power in the villains, especially 2 and 3. I guess you could say obviously Gary Busey in 1, and in 4 you have Jet Li, but I think Jet Li was at that time
it was his first American film. So
yeah, at that time he was a Hong Kong star, but yeah. If Jack Traven was written a little better and maybe had a bigger face to it, it could have been more impactful, I guess.
So $35 million was the budget. The movie made $144 million domestic and $319 worldwide. So I believe
continuing the trend of being about 10 times your budget. So these movies were all
worldwide, but not the highest grossing domestic.
Right. These are up to this point all very profitable films,
Yeah.
Give you the police discount.
Fly lice?
Fly lice. It is fry rice, you prick.
John, the gang's all here. That's the tagline for Lethal Weapon 4. And you can tell by this point, if you remember the poster for part 1, part 2, it was just Riggs and Murtaugh with their guns. Part 3 had this ridiculous Leo popping over their shoulders. And part 4 has like the entire fucking cast on the poster. So you're like, okay, well, I guess this is no longer a buddy cop. It's a buddy movie. The landscape of film had changed by 1998. This movie came out July 10th, 1998, up against Armageddon. Ridiculous budget, especially for the late 90s. By far the biggest budget of a Lethal Weapon movie at $140 million. Obviously, 6 years had passed since the third one, which was more time than all 3 the originals came out, back to back. It made $130 million domestically, $285 worldwide. Definitely the least profitable of all of them. Not a bomb, but summer movies had ramped up so much at that point, so much different than, dropping a buddy cop comedy in the late 80s or early 90s. Right after Lethal Weapon 3 and the success of it, I think Joel Silver initially was like, okay, we tied it up. This is a trilogy. It's done. But then, as we talked about in 3, he tried buying a spec script for Simon Says in hopes of kind of taking it and rewriting it into a Lethal Weapon script. I'm guessing it would have had to been taken place in LA, just with a very similar thing of
a vengeance, somebody from Riggs and Murtaugh's past. Yeah,
Gary Busey's son would be playing the villain.
Oh, hey. Jake Busey.
Jake Busey.
But the funny thing is then 20th Century Fox bought Simon Says to be Rapid Fire 2, which was like a Brandon Lee movie that not a lot of people saw. So I don't know how that would have worked as far as like your budget goes or whatever. Donner was still planning on more Lethal Weapon movies. He wanted to make a 4 and 5. However, Mel Gibson did not want to make a 4th movie. He thought that it was perfect the way it was. And, some people could argue maybe they should have left it alone.
Pressure from the studio. No, I like working with Donner. This is the 6th time I've worked with Donner, and
having done this rewatch, I have a much bigger fondness of 4 than I had initially. I think the action got a lot ramped up from 3. It had some higher stakes, some better villains. I'm only speaking in my opinion, but there was a lot of problems with this movie. Shane Black did come back, at least for some of the writing, along with I think his name is like Jonathan Lemkin and Alfred Goh. But the big problem with this movie, John, is that it had 4 editors.
Yes.
That's never a good thing. Now we can start to see like why this movie cost so much, why the production was so tough. There was a lot of problems with this movie where I think the first 3 kind of went fairly smoothly. Basic plot of the basic plot is convenience, but we'll talk about the actual. Yeah. So Riggs and Murtaugh like square off against an Asian mobster called Wasing-Ku, who is up to his neck in the slave trading and counterfeit currency. And I do feel that the plot of this one actually stays very consistent with itself. Yes, it does go off into territories where you're like, oh shit, did I forget what's going on in this movie? A couple of times it does, because it wants to really catch you up with the characters after a 6-year-long hiatus. But I feel like the plot in this one is more important than it was in 3, as far as the villains and things like that. But Jet Li joins the cast, and I have to say, it's a great matchup because to this point, Riggs has been the badass like fighter, and you have Murtaugh with his good marksman skills. Well, they both have good marksman skills, but it's scary how much like faster Wasing-Ku is than Riggs and Murtaugh at the same time. So you learn pretty quickly that like even though like Riggs kind of sizes him up in one point when they first meet, this guy could fucking kill both of them in 2 seconds in hand to hand. And it's kind of great because it's a nice change of pace. It's like physically they're so far outmatched. He doesn't get a lot of dialogue or screen time to really go over his plot. It's usually all visually shown, like him sort of meeting the forefathers. And
he's menacing when he needs to be there. His look is great. As you pointed out, his skills really stand out. He is a great villain in that respect. But he's lacking just because he doesn't have a lot of dialogue to fill out his character.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The only pushback I'll have in that is he's menacing because of that, because of his stares and because of how mysterious he is and stoic he is. To me, that's different than villains we've seen in the past that Riggs thinks he's going to end up going up against. So Riggs has a harder time kind of figuring this guy out. And it's kind of the only movie that has that villain who's just... He doesn't have a lot of exchanges, almost none, with our 2 leads. When he does, there's some really... I think this movie stands out in the quadrilogy because of the stunts. Obviously the fighting, because that makes sense. I think they were really leaning into that being a thing, and this is pre-Matrix. This is a year before Matrix, so you have all this kind of cool kung fu martial arts stuff that he's doing. And even Riggs doesn't know how to counter it. As goofy as this movie gets, and we'll get into it, I feel like whenever Riggs and Murtaugh are in a scene with Wasing-Ku, you're worried. You're like kind of worried about them because he could fuck them up real fast, Chris Rock joins the cast. I guess he's supposed to be comic relief and sort of a foil to Leo. I'll say this right off the bat. I love Chris Rock's stand-up. I think he's one of the best to ever do it.
I know you can't tell on camera. Will Smith is significantly bigger than me. We're not the same size, okay?
But man, I've just never bought him in film. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that.
A lot of it's how he's written. He's a fool. He's a clown. And we're supposed to believe him in these like action scenes when he's just been a goofball, and he's literally just doing Chris Rock shtick, like,
Yeah.
how do you use that old dial phone? Fool. And it's like, and then later on, he's like, pulling his gun out, and we're supposed to be scared. It just doesn't work for me at all when it comes to the Chris Rock character, specifically the twist of him somehow impregnating and marrying Rianne, the daughter of Murtaugh, without him knowing any of that. How he's a detective. How would that happen? I don't know. But everybody else in the family knows, and he didn't pick up on any banter or anything going on at the dinner table. I don't know. But
Well, all of the baby stuff is some of the worst for me. Like
it is,
right from
and
the
they
beginning.
sideline our girl in this movie, man.
Yeah, seriously.
They sideline her with this fake belly, and it's like, why'd you
knocking her up? Yeah, that was a bad move.
Why'd you write her out of the movie?
They
Yeah,
could have written Leo and Chris Rock out and written all the babies out and just kept her, being part of the action. I would be much happier with that. They actually do spend a considerable amount of time on the other subplot of the mysterious money that Murtaugh has, and his wife being an erotic novelist.
it adds nothing. It does nothing to the story whatsoever.
Like, I would really like to say I like some of the action scenes, but like
I love some of the action in this movie.
But at least two of them are kind of ruined by the banter and the dialogue that takes place during them. One of them being the opening scene, which has all the baby talk, and the stupid, like, take your clothes off and flap your arms around or whatever.
Oh,
Like,
the opening.
Murtaugh is not the same. Like,
No, he's a clown in this movie,
he's
man.
too over the top in his buffoonery this time.
I cannot sanction your buffoonery.
Where it worked before, like in the opening of the third film, where he's like, you just said blue a second ago. The way he delivers his dialogue is, really funny, but still coming across as over the top from the way it was in 1 and 2, but it still worked. By 3, it's just caricature. They're all caricatures of themselves. But it really bugs me that Murtaugh goes so over the top, because he was the one that, especially with these new rewatches, he's becoming my favorite character of the series. But 4, they let him down with some of the things they make him do, the homophobia and stuff. Not like, it doesn't rub me the wrong way that was an aspect of the movie at that time, but it's just like subplots. It's just stuff that doesn't add that much to the plot I'd like to be interested in, which is in a Lethal Weapon movie, the action plot. I know there's always the familial stuff going on, but I didn't like that one. That one did not work for me. The anything to do with Chris Rock and his daughter, and so I wish.
Yeah.
And what I was saying about like the opening action scene has all that damn dialogue trying to explain to us and get it out of the way so the movie can get going with that storyline.
Again, like a
Each
big,
of you are having kids, or
big
whatever.
overblown, overproduced practical stunt effect at the beginning with the guy with the flamethrower, all for nothing except to start
Yeah.
the movie. Despite Butters is his name, which is ridiculous. Butters and Rianne being married with a baby on the way. In the movie, they never speak a word to each other out loud. And that's because originally Rianne's husband or whatever was supposed to be a secret till the end. Maybe it was supposed to be a cop or something, because Butters was written literally as a gay detective, or whatever you want to call it, anti-gay humor in this movie.
The other action scene that I wish, like, the dialogue that has to come up in these moments, it's like, come on, what the fuck? These guys are in the middle of action. Why are we talking about this? The finale has them talking about the reveal of the wife being
you're boinking J.K. Rowling?
Yeah.
No,
fucking J.K. Rowling.
Oh, so you are boinking J.K. Rowling? Yeah, I guess I am boinking.
Yeah,
No, it's
You are boinking. Yeah, I'm boinking.
it's terrible. Like
It's terrible.
Well, here's the thing, and we'll get into it as we move on. But so we talked about the opening briefly, and we also talked about how 3 and 4 specifically, 2 a little bit, 2 they're on a case and it just turns out to be more than they bargained for. 3 is they're just walking and then they watch an armored car get robbed. In 4, they up the ante, where Leo, Riggs, and Murtaugh are on, I guess, an overnight fishing trip, and they stumble upon this huge human trafficking of Chinese people, and a big shootout happens, and that ignites the plot. They weren't on the case, nothing like that. And again, I'll say, like, I do like the little changes. Riggs can't fight the way he used to, and he certainly can't fight these martial artists. And I love the fact that they put the laser sighting on his scope to show that on his gun, to show that he either isn't or doesn't think he's as good of a marksman as he used to be. It's a nice little touch.
Yeah.
With that laser scope. But then you get more ridiculous Murtaugh, ham-fisted, I'm freeing slaves. I'm freeing slaves.
And I'm freeing slaves. I'm freeing slaves.
And he finds a family and takes them in, and that's all fine because it's a little bit different than stuff
they've always wanted to have their socially conscious message, even from the first film.
Sure.
I like the direction they go with this one, but there's a lot of ham-fisted stuff in there.
This is where you get into more Murtaugh property damage. A shark is eating his boat during this action scene, which deflates so much of the good, action scene of Riggs getting on the big boat and all that stuff. It's like,
Yes.
what the fuck is going on?
Yep, they always have to have their humor go. It's like Leo deflates tension on anything he does after part 2. But yeah, that scene and the shark and everything. I mean, I kind of like that there's a shark in a Lethal Weapon movie.
I just wish it would have ate Leo.
Yeah.
No, Leo is much less insufferable in this one, in my opinion. He's a little bit toned down, and actually some of the scenes where they're just making fun of him is pretty hilarious because he wants to be a PI.
Yeah.
I mean, his whole character is just ridiculous, and obviously they're shoehorning him into every one of these movies, but this one, he doesn't bug me as much as he does in 3.
I can agree with that, but
Yeah.
everybody does to some degree. Like he was already a caricature even from part 2. He's kind of not a realistic person, but whatever. The whole cast has become caricatures at this point. So like no one's really the character I wish they were in this particular film.
I love the way this movie ends. Not the stupid portrait of everybody like we're a family. Like literally, that was a behind the scenes shot, and Donner just put it in. And this is the first movie ever, John, that you find out the actual name of the psychiatrist, the doctor.
Stephanie, I think.
Yeah, you don't know her name. Yeah, he goes, Stephanie, how many times do I have to tell you? Like, this is the only
But
time.
again, like that pushes it a little bit too far, and I don't know. It's
Stephanie, I can't go out with you. I'm in a relationship. I'm very happy. All right, I think
when they do the car chase on the freeway, whatever car they're in doesn't have a siren, and Riggs like, I'd kill for a siren right now, and Murtaugh's like, "Aah!" like out the window just for a second. But I don't know. I cracked up laughing at that moment because that felt like the way that they kind of it was a little over the top and buffoonish, but it still kind of felt like the way he would react to what Riggs is saying in the moment, the way they used to react to each other.
Dude, that freeway scene is legit. I mean, that is fucking spectacular.
That's a great lethal weapon action set piece.
It's super long. It's intense. Like, it moves locations. Like, oh my God, I love that scene. Even like Riggs when he's out on the table just holding on to the plastic, and then obviously that piece of wood wouldn't fly through a windshield, but it's a movie,
Yeah, much like the way I think that Spielberg shot inflatable inner tube falling out of the back of an airplane and landing on a snowy hill. I buy it the way it's shot. I just accept it. It works for me. The physics, the way it's shown, work for me. This is another example of that, where it's like, no, a lot of that wouldn't take place, but they do it in a way where I'm so on board, I don't care. But they do it in a way that it seems very plausible, like
because it's a great escalation of a scene, like him going in to fight these guys in this under construction like trailer, and then there's plastic and they're fighting in there, and he's getting shoved up against the plastic, and then the plastic's only held up by staples, so it comes out. It's very good, and it's well edited too, but really well shot. I agree that
it's the escalation of that scene, and it pushes it a little bit when they floor it through the building, which obviously like
Yeah,
Fast,
the way it ends.
Fast
I
and
like
Furious does in every fucking movie afterwards, but
Yeah.
it's such a fun scene, and they let the tires blow out, so it's like, okay, it's kind of realistic, and then they get hit. Man, there's some great set pieces in this movie. So Lethal Weapon movies, it's like once you get to with anything, once you get to a part 4, I guess it makes sense to have it like international, Chinese warlords. Okay, let's do that because we've already done drug dealers, gun runners, diplomats, whatever. But aside from the freeway chase, which is a huge positive for me, I think the ending is very special, and not what you and I were talking about where they're like, hey, I had sex with fucking Jane Austen and fuck all that stuff. And
yeah,
when Riggs and Murtaugh go down to the bottom level of that dock, and it's just a super pissed off Jet Li because they had killed the forefathers and they killed, I think, like his brother or something. And the way he looks at them. So Murtaugh, he knows his age and he knows his abilities. And he's just like, it ain't worth it, Riggs. Like, they already know they can't beat this guy. They've been thrown around by him the whole movie. Riggs is like, okay, fine, let's go. And then they turn around and walk away. And then Riggs goes, that thing with the gun, the way he took my gun apart like that, how did he do that? How did he do that? And that's Riggs telling Murtaugh that he wants to fight him, like we can't let this guy go. So Murtaugh goes, okay, let's go ask him.
I mean, he took my gun apart with one deft move. How did he do that? How?
Okay, let's go ask him.
And then the fight that ensues, and it's the only fight where Murtaugh and Riggs are fighting the same guy. And I found that really interesting. And the fact that Murtaugh and Riggs just get so fucked up in this fight, and they really cut the music down to just this very ominous sort of just, it's not like action music, it's just like weird, it's just like dangerous quiet synth or something. Bad, they're just getting beat by this guy, and like even when he throws kicks, it takes 2 of them to like take him down. When Murtaugh finally gets taken out, you get that look in Riggs' eyes where he just starts headbutting him over and over, and that there's so much like heart and danger and creativity in that final fight. For me, it's the one part of the movie that doesn't have any funny, like you don't even know. You're like, okay, this is part 4. Are one of these guys gonna die? You don't know. Even rewatching it a few nights ago and knowing the outcome for 25 years, I was like, fuck, this scene is so good. Like, this guy is so overpowering them. And then obviously they end up down in the water, and just the picking up the machine gun, that machine gun shot is fucking glorious. All the music stops.
Well, I think it's the best scene of the movie, the most like the previous films. Just their characters kind of come back to what we expect of their characters in those moments.
Yeah.
The lighting, the look of it all with the rain and the set design underneath the dock. Yeah, it's just a really great scene. And I think it's a Cameron situation where like it escalates in certain ways where what one person does has an effect on the outcome of the fight, all the way to where it's underwater, and the, like you were saying, like the machine gun shot and everything is so cool. The setup of having Riggs get pulled back down and fall underneath a bunch of cement felt realistic and believable, the way that whole thing played out. The damage done to the dock by the car, the way he grabs onto it in that moment and pulls, like it just, I appreciate those little moments that sell why something happens instead of just because we want it to happen.
And it's also like you haven't seen that look in his eye and that fighting style since part 2. Because in part 3, it's like he's just kind of chasing Jack Traven, and then
He has a moment of it when Lorna gets shot, but
he
realizes she's okay. But he gets up for furious. But yeah, it's not the same as what you get in this fight.
I was surprised. Donner like just nailed this. Almost felt like
Gareth Evans wasn't really a thing back then, you know, the guy that directed The Raid. But the fighting and just the way, the kinetic energy and the way that like Riggs and Murtaugh are working together for certain points, and then Murtaugh gets his head shoved through a fucking glass window and then he's out for a second. I just thought it was so well choreographed, and it perfect for how each one of those two guys would be at that stage in their life. And it kind of sealed this as a movie I like more than 3 because of that, and because of the freeway. Both good. I don't dislike any of these movies. Probably the worst action scene in the movie is when they're like chasing down this poor fucking waiter of the restaurant.
Yeah.
And then you get
Pretty low budget.
then you get the outdated, even for 1998, Johnny Cochran joke. I don't even think in 1998 was something people were still. It's like,
If you get Johnny Cochran, I'll kill you.
Who
That just
remembers
sounds
Johnny?
like that's a Chris Rock line.
It is.
Probably
Yeah.
improv did or something. Yeah, like action scenes like that make the movie feel a bit like a TV movie. And
When we talk about property damage in these movies, this one takes the cake. Why does it take the cake, John?
Murtaugh's house getting burned down and his
Get
boat
burned to the ground.
and his boat sinking.
His boat
He-
sinks.
Well,
His
and that's
house
part of the
is
point of,
burned down.
maybe not part of the point, but they, you know, he's rich now or whatever. They got all this money that they're raking in from her books.
Why
So
they tie these people up and burn the house down instead of just shoot these people, I don't know. Lorna Cole's only redeeming moment in this movie is during that home invasion scene. And it's fine, but it's just like, God, why did she get delegated to like another comic relief kind of character? Oh, I'm hungry, I'm pregnant. It sucks.
It's weird that Gibson didn't really want to do more movies, yet the fourth one is just, it's such a departure for what his character, I think, the choices he would be making in his life. I guess he didn't really make the choice. It's like because I guess this has like been 6 years to some degree that they've been together. So it's not like they jumped right on immediately trying to have a family, but it's so shoehorned. It's just lame.
Well,
And-
there's a nice little
it sidelines her character. They could have done a lot of other things to give Gibson's character enough meat for the movie that didn't have to be this pregnancy storyline that completely sidelines a great character.
They should have just been a couple, and I'm fine with the whole he didn't want to get married because of his because he was a widower or whatever like that, and you can do that at the end, but there's no reason to have her pregnant. None.
Or have her die at the beginning of the film or something. That would be the very dark version, but I would love it.
I think there's like a great version of this movie in there somewhere where if it had the style and tone of part 2 with this like Chinese triad, I think it in more of like a Crazy Riggs, it would have worked better. I think the reason it feels so flippy floppy, for lack of a better term, kind of like, it's because you have all this comedy, but then you have this really serious kind of dark, violent ending. This is the only Lethal Weapon movie where Riggs never touches a cigarette. You never see him smoking. Apparently, he kicked the habit between 3 and 4. We know times were changing, so that was one of the reasons.
My fourth one is the fourth one. I'm not a big fan. I don't really like it at all. I like a couple action scenes and 1 or 2 character moments, but you got a pretty good trilogy with the first 3, and I don't really feel the need to continue on and get much out of that fourth film.
Number 4 for me is number 3. It's not very exciting. I still like it. Preface, I enjoy all these movies. I don't think there's a bad Lethal Weapon movie. I think 3 is just the most underwhelming for me, and I think the ending's kind of boring despite all the fire and the big stunts they put in. I don't like the way they dispatch of the villain.
So yeah, my number 3 is number 3. I don't think this list is ordered all that creatively, but I'm just a bigger fan of 3. It works for me. The humor still works for me. The character interactions, they haven't all become caricatures. I still see the characters I recognize. So it has a lot of issues. It's not one where I feel like I can't sit through it, where I'm like, oh, even the bigger chunks, like the gang stuff, is kind of the least interesting aspect of the movie to me. The only stuff I really feel like not watching is mainly stuff with Leo.
So my third favorite is 4. I agree with pretty much everything you said. I just think there's the strengths in this movie work really good for me, even if you just put them in a vacuum, because I love the ending. I love the intimate fights. I love the freeway scene, and it just feels a little less like condescending than the third one. I don't know. The third one feels like a Lethal Weapon fan film, and you could say that about 4 as well. I just found more enjoyment out of 4.
My number 2. So on this rewatch, it was, for the first time ever, became harder to answer this question because it was always very definitive between 1 and 2, which one I liked more. Rewatching this, part 1 has some character moments that, not that I didn't already love them from before, but I think I'm just choosing to see that as just a really strong element of this series overall, and a real, like, such a wonderful basis that we got all these movies created off of. It's hard for me not to want to move number 1 into a different position than where I used to see it, but I can't. It's still, number 1's coming in at number 2 for me in second place. But it elevated itself on this rewatch. It's great. And like I was saying, just such a wonderful basis for an action series of films, and kind of a basis for the buddy cop genre to some degree, and just kind of did it better than anybody who's still trying to do it at this point.
Number 2 for me is also Lethal Weapon 1 from 1987. It's the only one that's a Christmas movie, and that's great. So if people ever say that Shane Black doesn't make movies that don't take place on Christmas, there's a bunch of Lethal Weapon movies to prove that. But I love Lethal Weapon 1. I think it's brilliant. I don't really have a straight up reason for why it's number 2, except for the fact that 2 is just like a perfect sequel. It's one of those sequels that's way up there for me.
You know, we're at the number 1 position, which we both agree is Lethal Weapon 2. It's a perfect sequel. It's a great sequel, you know, building on something that was so great to begin with, but it surpassed it. It found ways to still make those characters super compelling in their second outing when they don't have the same issues that they like. Part of what makes 1 so compelling is the issues of those 2 characters and the moment that we see them in their lives. And 2 still finds a way to keep them very compelling. You have to, as you pointed out, you have to wait to get to what we really want to see out of the Riggs character. They pace it in a right way where it's such a wonderful payoff when you get there. And all the character development and the beautiful relationship that has grown with these 2 characters by the time you get to part 2 is enough to keep us entertained and interested until you get to those later moments of the film.
And Lethal Weapon 2 does that thing where it gives you the happy Riggs. I found a new family. I found people that love me and that I love, being Murtaugh and his family. But then you get the He-Man got his sword moment at the end. For him to just lose his shit and become the Riggs from the first movie. And it's paced perfectly and it's done perfectly. Even though it kind of sidelines certain characters for a little bit, it brings back an entire cast of people and builds, like nowadays that, you know, you see that more often with sequels, but like back in the 80s, it's like when you get a part 2, it's like, who's coming back? Just the main characters, and then everything else is different. He had a relationship with Trish, and he does look after the kids. I mean, it's all just implied more than shown, but like, yeah, and then just way upping the stakes. And like I said, another good element of this movie, despite them only being in this movie, is you get the extra team of cops that are present. Even if they don't make much of an impact, it's more interesting to see them working with sort of this other group of cops. And
they make a pretty good impact on the bottom of the pool and the side of the wall.
Maybe the buddy cop genre should come back with original things. It's still doable. I know people's perception on police is different, but maybe not detectives so much as, like, you know, the old black and whites, but I think you can still do it. I still wish there was a fucking Running Scared too. Man, I love that movie.